Okay, I'd like to call the October 7th, 2024 East Line Board of Ed regular meeting to order. Those of you can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business is public comment. Do I have any public comment? Just come up to the podium, and if you can give your name and address in like 3 minutes.
Good evening, my name is Stephanie Butler. My address is 54 Carter Oak Drive in East Lyme. I am the parent of a kindergartner and third grader at Flanders Elementary, as well as the Flanders Elementary PTA president. I'm here tonight to speak for myself and many other kindergarten parents I've encountered who are concerned with the current kindergarten class sizes at Flanders Elementary. From an educational equity perspective, an assured experience perspective, and a staff equity perspective, the current kindergarten classroom size of 20 students to one dedicated teacher are challenging. While I certainly understand the difficulty in accurately predicting incoming kindergarten class sizes each year, the district seemed caught off guard with the incoming size of the Flanders kindergarten classes, as neither class had a dedicated paraprofessional for the first several weeks of school. While I know Mrs. Showman worked incredibly diligently to ensure there was floating paraprofessional coverage, those first couple of weeks of school are formative and help set tone and expectations for the remainder of the school year. It would be a disservice to our students and to our incredibly hardworking teachers if they were put in that position. From a student and staff equity perspective, Flanders kindergarten classes are out of line with the rest of the district's elementary schools. Classes at Lily B. Haynes having 15 to 20% fewer students per class, and classes at Niantic Center having 25 to 40% fewer students per class. Internally at Flanders, our kindergarten classes have 5% more students than our smallest first grade class. In fact, the entire first grade at Flanders has only 2 more students than the entire kindergarten at Flanders, and an additional full-time teacher at the first grade level. This puts our kindergarten students and teachers at a disadvantage. Students get much less individualized and small group instruction, and staff must spend much more time on managing large group behavior and activity. From an assured experience perspective, the district and this board set guidelines each year with regard to class sizes. While I acknowledge these guidelines are not strict policies, they are what families turn to when assessing the budget each year and are documented standards this board believes our schools should adhere to. Regulation 6151 states that the school should make an effort to have kindergarten and first grade class sizes between 15 and 18. Both Flanders kindergarten classes are more than 10% over that ratio. I implore the district and this board to take steps to rectify the situation and assure our Flanders kindergartners are set up for future classroom success. If a third teacher at this point in the school year is not possible or prudent, we would like to ensure that the third teacher that is currently assigned at the first grade level is left in place heading into the 25-26 academic year so that the class ratios fall back in line with the other schools. Thank you for your time and attention.
Fair public comment. Name and address.
My name is Elizabeth Chivers, 177 North Bradwick Road, East Lyme. I would like to start with just thanking you all for doing everything you do. I specifically moved to East Lyme for the schools for my 2 students. I have 2 students in a middle school. I would like to talk tonight about some issues occurring outside of the student classrooms at the middle school, specifically an assembly that occurred on September 17th. I was surprised to hear from my children that they saw an assembly, and there were several skits on sensitive topics that I do not feel are age appropriate for our students. I was upset that we were not informed of this ahead of time. I recall an assembly a few years ago on suicide prevention that we were given the option to opt out of this. We heard about it a week ahead of time. We were not afforded this opportunity this time. Apparently, I'm not alone in my feelings. On September 17th, 10 days after the assembly, Principal Claudine Kelly sent out an email containing an explanatory letter. Sent to all parents. I'll read this a portion. Dear Elms families, I am writing regarding our recent school assembly on September 17th. I've had some families in our school community request clarity about the presentation and ask why there was limited communication prior to the performance and with the option to opt out. The assembly was comprised of various skits performed by the Looking Theater, an ensemble from the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts. While the performance was underway, I recognized the content being delivered by our ensemble was not as expected and may have caused a level of confusion amongst our students. As a result, I spoke with the program director and ended the performance early. There is more, but for the sake of time, I have two main issues with this letter. Why was Ms. Kelly not aware of the content of the assembly? I did a simple Google search on the Looking Theater. This is a printout from their website. Topics include racism, prejudice, depression, anxiety, use of drugs, alcohol, effective social media, LGBTQIA+ rights, gender identity, self-harm, suicide, bullying, eating disorders, body image, teen pregnancy. It was very simple to see what the assembly was about. Why would Ms. Kelly expose our students to such sensitive topics without finding out what they would be presenting? This information that was presented cannot be unseen and unheard by children as young as 5th grade, when most other districts are still innocent elementary students. The second issue, Ms. Kelly claims that she ended the performance early. My 8th grader said the 7th and 8th graders saw the assembly and that the 5th and 6th graders saw it second. The presentation was done twice. My 6th grader said they saw the same skits, that my 8th grader saw the same 6 skits. So when was it cut early? And then why was it replayed for the younger students? I not only take the word of my children, but I do listen to Ms. Kelly herself. And she did send out a 5 at 5 on September 20th talking about the assembly. I only have a 3-second clip because I am short on time for you to hear Ms. Kelly and her opinions on the assembly. I sound off on my phone, I apologize.
Good sound, so great. All right, next.
So according to Ms. Kelly, this was a good assembly and great. So which are we to believe? It is obvious that Ms. Kelly is being dishonest. The day after the assembly, it was a good assembly, great. She explained how she's on it. 10 days later, after parents complained about this, she wrote the letter and said she was uncomfortable and she ended it early. As a parent, I am uncomfortable sending my children to a school not knowing what they are being exposed to, and more importantly, can no longer trust the accuracy of any correspondence coming from the leadership at the middle school. I am not confident the administration is telling the truth about what is going on at the school. So I respectfully request that the Board of Education look into this, discuss the severity of the matter, and pursue new leadership at East Lyme Middle School. The parents in East Lyme deserve a trustworthy, competent, honest leader to entrust our children to every day, which I do not believe we have right now. Thank you for your time. I eagerly await a response, quick action on this important issue.
Thank you, Lindsay. Additional public comment. Other public comment? Public comment? Hearing none, we're going to close public comment for this meeting. And we move on to special recognition. And we have the Pathways program, which has been a phenomenal program. Number of our administration and other leaders have been part of. Dave has been really the outreach and the driver of a lot of the work. And we've had number of different local businesses who have partnered with their schools. And we want to start recognizing them because it's been a phenomenal program and great feedback that we've been receiving. So this is our first recognition, and I'll pass on to Jeff and Dave to walk us through that.
Yeah, it's we're going to kind of turn it over to Dave because he's one who's really established a great relationship with Furman's Garage. So Dave, if you want to kind of welcome them, and we're looking forward to recognize them for I'll let you kind of explain the partnership too. just so
Okay,
that-
everyone. So tonight we have Mike and Eileen Furman from Furman's Garage. Furman's Garage has been a partner for a long time. This is a partnership that was with Coastal Connections was off-site. And a lot of times we had some not difficult kids, but we had kids who wanted a real hands-on experience. And the Furman's family has always been generous and kind to the East Lyme schools. Aside from that, so then few years ago, we just, with their gracious help, we started a class that was actually being taught after school at Furman's Garage. And so we had access to facilities we don't have access to at East Lyme High School. And we have professionals we don't have access to in the field, teaching our students automotive mechanics at their facility. I really think it was kind of really thinking out of the box for East Lyme to then, because of Furman's Garage, I think that's what kind of launched the mindset of pathways and reaching out to different sustainable community partners. Not just internships, but community partners we can really rely on for the long term to best serve our students of East Lyme. We're experimenting. We're going to try an early bird automotive class. So next semester, kids will go before school, like an early bird PE. They're going to go to Furman's Garage, and it'll be co-taught with one of their techs and one of our CTE instructors, Mr. Breeling. So we're going to see how that looks. We're kind of excited about it. But long story short, every time East Lyme High School's interacted with the Furman's family, Furman's Garage, they've been exceptionally gracious. The skill, the level of expertise and rigor that are afforded to our students in that field is just unmatched. Andrew couldn't be here today. He's one of the techs. We're going to have him come in a different night with some other folks, but he is such a high level instructor. He's been great with our students. The kids love him. And it's, again, when you walk into this learning environment, you're kind of blown away that he's not a professional teacher. He has all these stations set up. He has all these kids moving quick. He's very good about, it's not just changing your oil. We're taking brakes apart. We're doing all kinds of stuff that, really high level stuff. So we're just here to recognize the Furman's family who've been gracious for many years with us. And come on up. We have actually Mr. Breeling's class. We have some new equipment. So we etched out a couple things. So we have a little swag here. We have a couple East Lyme Yeti cups that were etched out in Mr. Breeling's class. And also, let's see. Again, in Mr. Breeling's class at East Lyme High School, etched out the Furman's Garage family. Thank you very much for your support of the East Lyme High School Pathways program. With heartfelt appreciation, we honor your generous contributions and partnership. Sincerely, the East Lyme Board of Education. So beautiful work on screen. Go ahead.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We like helping out. I always give the story. So my dad went through the high school. I went through the high school. When my dad did, there were shop classes here. I have a gun cabinet at home that he made in woodworking shop here. He went through welding here and made a coffee table that we still have as well. By the time I went through, all that stuff had kind of been removed and cut back. And I remember him kind of saying then that it was kind of too bad that all the stuff was coming out of the schools and, stuff was getting pushed towards Grasso Tech. And I think it's good that now we're seeing that, all right, there's a need for this stuff. People working with their hands, whether it be mechanics, electricians, plumbers, all that stuff. So hopefully we keep building upon it. We don't mind offering up the facility. Not bragging, we do. We got all the great stuff, keep the place clean, and the kids seem to get a lot out of it. A lot of the parents were appreciative, and just giving the kids that kind of basic level to figure stuff out, when they're out on their own, and not having to rely on us as much to pay the money to, or calling mom and dad back home for something that they should be able to take care of. So again, thank you, and we look forward to hopefully doing more of it in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Eileen.
Ready, thank you.
Someone to be in the picture?
Sorry, we caught you.
My dear Lord, I'm sorry. You're fine. Want to get in there too, Dave? Yeah.
That was part
How long did I? Yeah, I know. There it goes. Did you say? I was gonna move. You want me to go on the other side? I was gonna move the podium.
There you go.
There we go. I can cut a lot of things out, but I don't think I can cut the podium out. There you go. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really nice.
Thanks, Steve.
And you definitely don't have to stay for the whole board. Don't want to be rude, stay a few more minutes. Next order of business, we have approval of minutes from the September 23rd meeting.
I'd like to major correction.
Yes.
Sorry, you have to forgive me, my thing printed sideways. On 5C,
The High School Vision Committee?
yes. It says, the smaller group will include up to 10 people. It is anticipated the feasibility student would need the entire school year.
Study.
Study.
Student to study.
Good catch.
What was it?
Well, and I think that was something for the committee, for the community, that we would have an alternate if necessary, if Jill wasn't available. Because Jill had volunteered, but maybe we're ahead of ourselves with that.
Different committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the town CIP,
Okay,
new committee.
my mistake, I
Yeah.
apologize. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the September 23rd regular Board of Ed meeting
With the change.
with the changes that Jamie has just suggested. Or requested.
Second, Jamie, further comment? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same. That's passed. Oh. Jamie abstained. Okay, moving on to special reports. So, just before we start moving on the special reports, so for the special reports, if we can, focus questions on the parts that whether it's the selectmen or the students bring up during the discussion. If there's other things that we're looking for, we probably should go under board comment. So questions, clarifications of what they say. That's kind of the interaction, but the other piece probably is board comment, and then we can prepare for the next meeting to have them come and present and discuss those. So that's kind of just housekeeping on the special reports. School students, Glenn and you're done.
We're good, yes. It's an in ordered process, yes, one, two.
Okay, so the Veterans Day Assembly is gonna be held on November 11th. And this assembly invites, high school alumni or parents of people in high school who are either active duty or veterans, and they get to watch the assembly. Usually we have either a couple speakers that are students, or I don't know if we're having like an actual speaker this year. And they just speak about, like last year, it was different times that people in the high school experienced. Like when there was like Desert Storm or when 9/11 happened. And we had teachers who went to East Lyme. Mahan spoke about Desert Storm. And they just talked about their experience at the high school. And yeah. PSAT day is on the 15th, next Tuesday, and juniors have the option to go home after, or they can stay at the school when the testing is completed. Evan Malarney was voted ECC Athlete of the Week for boys soccer. Coach Wally Christensen was voted a member of the 2024 Connecticut Coaches Hall of Fame for boys soccer. The club fair was held on the second and a lot of people enjoyed it. It was a good way to make connections and a lot of the underclassmen got to see the clubs that we offered and try new things. The 22nd to the 26th of October is Spirit Week, and I hear that a lot of people are getting really excited about it. It's only 2 weeks away. Thursday, the 31st is the last day for Q1. On the same day that PSATs are taking place, the language proficiency test for the SAIL biliteracy will be taken by students who are eligible. So it's mostly seniors and then some juniors who are really advanced in their language. And seniors are continuing to still work on their college essay.
And students are applying for career concentrations, which are things that go on your transcript, acknowledging that you have good background in the specialty. No school Monday because of the Columbus Day weekend. The girls have an ALS Cup today against Waterford. It's at 6:30, so it's in like 10 minutes. And for Spirit Week, the games that we are doing for Spirit Week include tug of war, 5-legged race, scooter race, pie eating, hula hoop, dodgeball. It's only going to be during advisory only. It's a little different. And brain games, which is going to be during lunch. And also during Spirit Week, ways that you can earn points for your grade to win include a banner and like make a better banner. There's judges to compare it. Pep rally, dressing up. However, many people dress up according to the type of day, whereas like color day or the day, you get points off of that. Commons decorating, a money drive and food drive. The girls volleyball has a match today against Newton, or had a match against Newton at 5:30. It was here at the Eastham High School. There was a Class Act Leadership Council conference today that included Ryan Wargo, Mikey Timpano, Grace Lloyd, Avery Standler, Abby Perulis, Kate Erickson, Madeline Anderson, and Maya Petrozello.
Any questions?
Did you say Class Act Leadership Conference? I just wanna.
Class Act Leadership Council Conference.
What is that?
That's at the AquaTurf, right?
Yes.
It was. Mrs. Kelly can help out too.
Well,
I guess
we
you want-
usually bring people from different high schools, from different sports, like all those people play different sports and they're all different seasons. And it highlights the leaders on the team and it shows them like how to be a better leader and what makes good leadership on a team, especially like a sports team. And
So it's only for sports?
Yeah, Mr. Marcoux
I
was
was gonna
that.
say, is this that Mr. Marcoux thing?
Yeah,
It's the CIAC thing, right?
yes, the ECC also does one. I went to one last spring. At
But
NFA.
you only get a Class Act Leadership Council Conference Award if you're a sports player.
Thing, cause it's only for sports, like all these people are doing, like there's soccer, basketball, field hockey, softball, volleyball. Field hockey again, fencing and another soccer.
Questions?
Cheerleaders.
I had one question. You mentioned the club fair and some pictures of it, either in the saga or
I think it was
social
in
media. There's
email.
that email, okay, somewhere. I knew I saw. Is that, have we done that before? Okay.
Yeah, we do that every year during
Okay.
the lunches.
Okay, I couldn't remember doing that. Okay, that's good, because it gives someone, especially a freshman, a chance to kind
Yeah.
of figure out what you want to do and what looks interesting. Other questions?
Just a question about the clubs. I don't know if you have the answer to this, but the clubs, are they typically the carryover from the clubs that were offered the previous years and now they have like new, president or whatever?
Yeah.
Or do we see new clubs emerging?
A bit of both. We usually have new clubs or people that are really trying to start up new clubs. And that's a good way for them to gain new members because like each club has their own table and they usually set up a little trifold and they'll do like an interactive piece. to get to know the club. Like for the crew team, they pulled out ergs, which is what they work out on, and they had people race a 100-meter dash. And it was like a competition, and whoever won got a piece of candy. I was there because I was running it. But yeah, and then there's also like clubs like Key Club that have been around for a long time, and it's like the leadership gets passed down each year, and they're still going to the club fair and letting people know about it, because the freshmen don't know about these clubs, because I'm sure they have clubs in middle school, but not nearly as much as East Lyme High School. But yeah, it's a big one.
Thank you. Well, at one time I was, there was some concern about having enough faculty advisors, I think was the term. How is that? Are people able to do that? I know the faculty responsibility is quite stringent, so I understand if they don't want to necessarily run and do that, but what was that?
I think you really just have to find like the right teacher or the right person, because there's definitely some teachers who say no or just might not want to do it. And then there's teachers who, a lot of it is just chaperoning. Like you'll have a president, a treasurer, secretary, a vice president, and especially in the clubs, like Key Club and what else is there? Like Best Buddies.
Yeah.
They mainly run the meetings. They run the Google Classroom. The
They being the teachers or they being?
It's mostly the students. The
It's
students run
mostly
everything.
student ran.
The teacher's there to kind of advise and to be there to help, but they don't really get involved. It's mostly the student, like president, vice president, whoever they have in charge usually run the show. Run Google Classroom most of the time, so it's mostly just the students.
It's a time commitment, like the
Yeah.
car wash on Sunday, right? There were
Yeah.
faculty members there
They were,
volunteering. That's huge. So thank you.
Thanks, Olivia.
Do you know if there's a lot of students who are in multiple clubs?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
yes, there's a variety of clubs. I even, no, I think you can sign up to how many clubs you.
Yeah, you can really sign up for anything. It's just like, how far are you gonna stretch yourself?
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get on to that soccer game.
Okay, we now have our selectmen's representative.
Good
Arlie.
evening. The last meeting, I reported on the creation of the Fair Rent Commission. And we found this to be quite an involved chore. The state is very particular about these things, and we have managed to get a full commission with the exception of needing one alternate. And that alternate must be a currently operating residential landlord. Landlord.
Residential.
As opposed to commercial. That will bring us to a full commission. We're hoping to get to attract someone because it's really important with the alternates that they be informed and up to date on what's going on. This has a lot of legal implications as well. So after at their first meeting, they will establish a meeting time, dates, and they be required to record all meetings as other town agencies are required. So if you know of anyone, I think especially as this is an alternate, then someone who perhaps doesn't have time to devote themselves to all meetings could be kept informed and able to fill in. So, this was approved at our last meeting, and their first meeting has not been set up yet, but that will be happening shortly. We also were informed at the last meeting of the possibility to purchase additional lots on the Hathaway property, which we had previously purchased. This is really very exciting because of, I'd say, three major points. First of all, this will be able to expand on our already established open space. So this will be an add-on. Secondly, as you're all familiar, our water system is all dependent on wells. And this well, the water that would be provided, once we established a well there, would be very significant because this water from this well would not be impacted by any accidents might occur on I-95. And we all know what the traffic pattern is like on that. And we have had one accident on 95, very serious one a few years ago, which endangered our water system. So that would be a second advantage. This would also give us additional water frontage on Patagonia Lake. And any of you who might be fisher people, in other words, enjoying fishing, as opposed to just fishermen. There's very few places where you can have public access to do things such as that on Patagonia Lake. And of course, this is a desirable piece. The owners have offered it to the town for $400,000. And there is already a developer who has said that he'll pay $600,000. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get support for this as well as get state grants to help us for the purchase dedicated to open space. We also, when we bought that property, did not have any space really for on-site parking. And we knew that that was going to be a problem. Not that I would want to see this piece of property be devoted exclusively to parking, but it does open up other portions of the property which would not be needed to be used for that. Like all of these grants, short timeline, and the seller of the property has stated that he will not accept any less than the $400,000 because he has someone chomping at heels, offering to pay $600,000. So hope we have a deadline to meet on that. And hopefully we'll get public support for this, adding to not only the further protection of our water system, but also open space. So I think that basically that has been the focus of our discussion, the Fair Rent Commission, and then this opportunity that has just arisen. Any questions?
I have two questions. First, that's exciting about the Hathaway property. Do you know how big the lots are? Like, are we talking like
It's
400 acres or
I think it's 400,000 feet.
400,000 feet?
I think so.
And then with the Fair Rent Commission, the residential landlord you're looking for, is party gonna play into that?
No.
I know you guys were trying to keep it
Right.
balanced,
No,
but party
in
does
this
not
particular
matter.
case, because it's landlord, so this is considered a civilian
Okay.
appointment.
Sure, people would like to know that they don't have to be a certified. Okay, thank you, Roseanne.
Questions for Roseanne?
I'm a short timer tonight. I'm double booked.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay a bit. I don't want to miss anything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Marty. Okay. Moving on to our discussion action items. Discussion action items for the evening and first for instruction. And we have for discussion information and our artificial intelligence follow-up. And you recall, we had our workshop, so we had a good discussion and Matt Mervin giving an overview of AI and how other districts, where they are and things we could do. We thought it'd be good to, as the next step is to start explaining and showing what we're actually doing in East Lyme currently, because we have some use of AI. So we have a team of people who are gonna present to us. I'll pass it on to, and then
Yeah, we're excited. I'm gonna actually pass over to Annalise as well, as she's gonna introduce the team members and we'll get into what we do. Got a dynamic team here. We appreciate them taking the time to be with us. They put a lot of effort in last year and already this year into incorporating, AI practices into the classroom. So Lisa, turn
Yeah,
over to
sure.
you and.
I'll just ask my team to kind of hover behind me.
Loud up.
Yeah, we all have little components we're gonna do, but we're doing this as a team, so. And I'll take a second to introduce everybody, before I start to kick us off, but I'll start with our instructional coaches, Shannon Saglio from the middle school, Gil Gallant from the elementary level, Tiffany Casalino from the high school level. We have our library media specialist, Carla Wojtovich from the middle school, and Sarah Zelinsky, who's a social studies teacher. So we're all going to kind of share our practice, what we've done, probably hopefully give you some examples this evening and bring it to life for you in terms of what it looks like for us. So again. So intended outcomes, I'm gonna kick off with a little bit of an overview of what our journey has looked like so far in East Lyme. We'll talk a little bit about the AI teacher tools and how we're currently using them. And then we're gonna shift lastly to some of the work that we are sort of dipping our toe in the water with regards to student use. Talk a little bit about what our needs are in relation to the student component. And talks about some of the pilots we have in place and what our next steps will be. So in terms of our AI journey so far, we have a district-wide technology committee that's been meeting for a few years now. This committee is comprised of a variety of different stakeholders, classroom teachers, OT, PT, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language. We have special education represented. So we have everyone except for students at this point represented on the committee, but we have talked about engaging students in this conversation this year as an addition to the work. This tech committee has really been in the past focused on some of the more of the sort of logistical pieces, Google Classroom versus the Microsoft platform that we use. Last year, we really started to kind of take a look, more of a bigger picture look at AI. We looked at the toolkit that I had handed over to our CCI committee. We broke that down into pieces and started to think about what does AI look like for us for here in East Lyme, and we did start to pilot some things. In addition to that, Shannon and Gil had done some introduction professional development. They'll give you a little bit of a snapshot of what that looked like last year. Yeah, so other than that, I'm gonna pass. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry. Let me just take a look here. So this year's tech committee, in addition to just looking at the introduction to AI, we really want to take a closer look at those guidelines. We had talked to you guys about that. That's work that actually the committee's coming together tomorrow. We're going to put some draft guidelines in front of them. We're going to look a little bit deeper into AI in terms of how can we continue to use it as educators. And then again, thinking about what do we need in order to start implementing in its use for students. Okay, now I'm gonna pass it to Janet. Sorry about that.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me. So I'd like to briefly share the professional development we conducted last year with our educators on AI tools, their applications in the classroom, and the challenges that we discussed. So you can see up there, we went over relevance. So we started by explaining the basics of how AI works, how it processes data, identifies patterns, and provides recommendations or solutions, generates outputs. We identify tools that teachers were familiar with, start off with a little comfort zone. Our goal is to help teachers understand AI's capabilities so that they can use it effectively. We emphasize the importance of being informed users, knowing when AI can be a valuable tool and when it might fall short. We felt it was critical for teachers to learn how this technology works before first considering how it's going to impact student learning. So we did examples. So for instance, we showed some demos of, all right, this was a query, a prompt put into ChatGPT on the left where I asked them to generate quotes from a historical figure. And it generated quotes that seemed very real, but then when we copied and pasted those quotes into Google to see if they actually existed, you found out that they were hallucinations, they were fake. So these are very important implications for educators to understand the differences between how AI works versus how a typical search engine works. So we discussed the key challenges with AI. So another popular example are deep fakes and the importance of media literacy, which will be discussed a little bit later. But this was a popular image that circulated on social media last year, looked very real. But that's clearly not the Pope's traditional jacket. But it goes into, you know, what does this mean as a society and for citizens, and what responsibilities are schools going to have to take in educating our future students in a world of AI now? So we also discussed, we addressed many ways AI can actually support teachers. For example, AI can help teachers scaffold lessons, differentiate instruction by adapting materials for students with varying needs, and assist with lesson planning by generating ideas, resources, and assessment tools. And we focused on practical applications first that enhance instruction, but we're also thinking about what role, the critical role a teacher still plays in this process. The teacher is still the expert in the process. This is a tool. Our next steps are to determine the best application for students to prepare them for a world with AI, and to be careful not to repeat mistakes of the past. For instance, I remember when Google first came out, very popular opinion out there was students don't need to know facts anymore. They can just Google everything. And that had implications for how teachers started to design lessons. Not everyone, but it was a thing when that technology rolled out. So what does this mean for us now with this new technology? How can we make sure we don't fall into those same pitfalls? And we also need to acknowledge that there are a lot of possibilities. So for instance, I found this title, Empowering Individuals with Disabilities Through AI Technology. This was a school that's thinking about more of the project-based learning that could come and be generated from AI. So in summary, our professional development focused on making teachers aware how AI can be a powerful tool while recognizing its limitations. We incorporated professional learning into our coaching cycles and during building-based professional development. And we are committed to intentionally using AI to support effective instruction while ensuring its use that it's used responsibly and ethically. And these are just some examples of how we integrated into some of the building-based PD last year to support multilingual learners and to organize knowledge.
So we're going to just show you, we're going to give you an overview of 3 different tools that we that are sort of popular in use in East Lyme right now, and sort of how we've used that. I have handouts, so as each person shares what you're seeing on the screen, we're also going to give to you so you can see closer up, okay? And first up is DIFIT with Gil.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So we've used DIFIT in some grade levels to think about how teachers can plan instruction, basically using some of the sciences or the social studies work. So as an example here that I worked with 2nd grade teachers on getting some information about living versus non-living things with their students. And what happens is you can have the DIFIT, the website, you know, you can give it, even have it generate the content or put your own content in there, and it quickly can take that and use it to summarize, help kids summarize their learning as we do here, or do some reflection, or even do some collaborative work where they're working as teams, doing things together. So in that example, the DIFIT chatbot immediately created the text and then created activities related to that in relation to having children summarize the content. They were being writing and reading strategies. They were using their 5 senses. They even were doing things where they were comparing living versus non-living things, much like they're doing currently with the Wit and Wisdom curriculum in language arts. So right away, teachers are saving time by not having to reteach templates or ideas. They can quickly go into an activity, understanding that when we say, what do you notice and wonder about living versus non-living things? It's the same thing that you were comparing in your work during the language arts curriculum with the Wit and Wisdom curriculum. So kids can quickly understand what they're being asked to do, and it can be applied to many different content areas. The nice thing is I didn't have to create any of this. You know, as a teacher, there's only so much time you have in a day. And all I had to do is say, you know, I want to do a unit on living and non-living things And it kind of generated some ideas, and then I could sift through those and say, well, this is good, that's not so good. I could edit, I could pick pictures and stuff, but generally I wasn't wasting a lot of time creating templates for content. I was sorting and sifting through them. So in a way, like Saul Khan talks about, you have this virtual teaching assistant that is readily available. I mean, you're like, I just don't know what I'm doing today with this content. I can quickly generate that and have it available for the students. Also, we see that they are still focused on key vocabulary like they're doing in language arts. So no matter what the content is, it pulls out right away what key vocabulary you might want to teach the kids, pre-teach, or make sure they understand before you get to it. It also allows for collaboration so that no matter what the kids are doing, they might reflect and discuss that content with each other. So we're still continuing to do that in the classroom. So very important. So Tiffany, is going to talk about.
Questions during, or do you want to wait till the end?
Why don't we wait to the end and then we can do the questions as a follow-up?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about ChatGPT, how it is being used, how it can be used as a teacher's really good friend when it comes to planning. So the power of ChatGPT really is in the queries that you can ask it, and for that reason it's a really versatile tool. You can ask it just about anything and it will generate an answer for you. It also will allow you to drill down on that question. So you see the results, you might want to tweak what you get as a result, and you can ask it another question and it will refine what it generated for you. So I'm just going to give you an example of how I supported an English teacher who was really struggling. He had a number of different things going on in his classroom. It is a heterogeneous classroom, so he has diverse learners. Some of his learners were chronically absent, so we know that that is an issue for learning. Some were just not prepared and others were on track and ready to move on. So after talking with him, I decided to just create a ChatGPT query, and this is it. This is all verbatim right in the handout that you have in front of you too. So I asked it to create a lesson with 3 stations. Stations are a really effective means of differentiating a lesson within the same class because you can tailor those stations to the different needs of your learners. The novel that they were reading at the time was American Born Chinese, which is a graphic novel. And then I said, some of my students are chronically absent, some need to catch up. Some don't do the reading homework and some are caught up and ready to move forward. So what I expected was that ChatGPT would generate a lesson with 3 stations that would meet the needs of those 3 groups of students. So but it's verbatim. I didn't edit this. This is exactly what ChatGPT responded with. So I'm going to share that with you. So it created a lesson objective for all of the students. So that was shared, even though there were 3 different stations with 3 different types of learners and needs. So it just generated students will explore key themes, character development, and cultural identity in American Born Chinese with activities tailored to their readiness. So this is already, you see, is useful for students who need modifications, whether it's special ed. This is also useful for multi-language learners as well, because sometimes we need to make modifications and accommodations for them as well. So the first station that it generated was the catch-up station. So this was for students who are behind or absent. So I'm not going to read this whole slide to you, but you see that it created a focus for that group. So for this one, just the key plot points and character development, just so those students could keep up with the rest of the class. It created a materials list. And then it created activities, 4 different activities in this case, and an assessment to go with those activities. So that was the first station. The next was, they called it, or the bot called it, an engage reading stations, but this is for students who needed to just do the reading homework. So the focus, close reading and text analysis, materials, again, that it generated some activities and an assessment for those activities. Then the third station, it called the extension station. This is for students who were caught up and ready to move forward. And the focus for that was advanced thematic exploration and creative response. So again, material list of activities that possibly could engage in, and then an assessment for those activities. So then it came up with a station rotation plan. This is what you would do typically in a station's activity, rotate every 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the length of the class. It also said, alternatively, students can choose the station that matches their needs based on readiness or teacher guidance. So that actually is authentic. I mean, that would be how you could incorporate some versatility in that and just have students go where they need to go. So then the bots basically decided everybody needs to come together at the end, so there's some cohesion in the class. So it suggests to bring all groups together for class discussion. And this is what's really key is that every group of students could participate in that final discussion because each station tailored the activity to enable them to participate in that final assessment or discussion. And then it just suggested some questions that you might ask the whole group. So some takeaways from this, it took ChatGPT less than a minute to generate that response. And what it was doing was asking for a solution to a need in the classroom. The response is not perfect, but it does provide a solid foundation. And one thing that's really important to note here is it really does take the expertise of the teacher to look through that information and decide, is this good or is it not good? How can I improve on it? What can I discard? What can I keep? So this is not something that should just be taking carte blanche to say, I'm going to use this in the classroom. It really does take the lens of an experienced teacher and a teacher who knows their students to be able to finesse that lesson into something that it would work. I showed this I basically copy pasted everything and I sent it to that teacher and his response was, wow, that's pretty good. So it's definitely, it's a time saver. I will say that a lot of teachers that I talk to feel very hesitant to do it because it feels like we're cheating or we're cutting corners. As teachers, we work hard. We want our stuff to be original. And I think that it is a little bit of a learning curve for our teachers to feel comfortable using this. I'm trying to encourage them to do it. I generate stuff like this all the time just to support them. And I think that they're more comfortable with me doing it and giving to them than doing it themselves. So we'll get there. But that's just an example of what I can do.
Okay, another tool that is a great entry level tool for teachers. And as Tiffany was just saying, I think it's critical that background knowledge is an essential piece of this. You have to have a tremendous amount of background knowledge as the user to really then verify whether the output is valid, right? So we need to think about that when we're going to think switching from adult users to student users, right? So that's really critical. So Magic School AI understood some of this too with like the hesitancy and how this could be overwhelming. So what they did was they created basically a bunch of bots with typical tasks that educators are already familiar with. It runs off of GPT, and then prompting is another thing that's essential AI, is knowing what and how to ask it something. Because if I just say, create a lesson on this topic, that lesson is probably, I'm gonna have like 10 more chats to get it to be what I want it to be meaningful. But the better prompter you are, the better the output. And that's going to be a skill we're going to have to be teaching kids as we move forward, especially in the older grades. But Magic School AI is just an example of how this can work for a teacher with planning. And let's see, did that video work or not?
It did, when I read it. It's
Oh,
linked, the title is
okay,
linked,
got it.
yeah.
Sorry. No, that's okay. Your eyes. So this is showing, it created a new feature in in Magic School AI where you can import a document and then have a discussion with it. So in this case, I took our instructional framework for explicit instruction, the elements. So that way, if a teacher is planning, if I'm working with a teacher with this as a coach, we can use the elements of explicit instruction as we're thinking about the design of the content that we're working on. So then it comes a brainstorm partner in that work. So that's what this model would be. But this is easier for like people that I think are just like kind of getting used to it, and they can start to see how it works within the classroom. Let's see if we can get.
In this video, I'm going to introduce you to Magic School AI, an AI tool for teachers. Magic School AI is a tool teachers can use to assist with lesson planning and scaffolding to support the diverse needs of students. As you can see, it creates a number of bots that helps teachers to customize their lessons. Teachers have the ability to create rubrics, quizzes, sentence stems, exemplars, and questions to support their curriculum. I'm going to show a new feature on Magic School that teachers can use. It's called Chat with Docs. Teachers click Chat with Docs, they can upload a document. So in this demonstration, I'm going to upload a document related to the explicit instruction framework teachers have received PD on. So you upload, you wait for it to show, and then you hit generate. And it's going to create a personalized bot for the teachers. You can see that the AI will say that it's an assistant to help teachers use the explicit instruction framework for planning. So it gives a little guidance. So now I can interact and chat with the doc. So let's say I'm a middle school teacher trying to plan a lesson on the 5 themes of geography.
So I said, how can I use the elements of explicit instruction to plan lessons on the 5 themes of geography? You have to use a lot of the vocabulary in the.
So I asked the
prompt.
question, how can I use the explicit instruction to plan lessons on the 5 themes of geography? So we're gonna see how well it aligns with the framework. So it gives teachers suggestions like identify the essential geographic concept, skills, and vocabulary. Ensure the lesson content and activities directly address these critical elements. It will give some prompts and some tips on making sure that the user is using a sequence that builds from easier to complex. So starting with the concept of location and then moving to something that might be a little bit more abstract for students. So now it gives me a bunch of tips on the different elements that I can use as a brainstorming tool as I'm designing my lessons to meet the needs of my students. And so now I could go further. I could ask it to create a 5-day pacing guide based on these suggestions.
This specifically can help when you have a disruption to a schedule, like a snow day or something that you had your original plan. You're like, okay, whoop, I just lost 3 days. So let me see what they suggest. I have a game plan in my head, but a lot of times it's a nice little template for you to then focus more on the
So
actual
that
development of the
gives me
lesson.
some ideas for planning that sequence based on the elements of explicit instruction. These are overviews, so that way I can think about the students in front of me and how I can design those lessons, but also making sure that I'm aligning it with our framework. So this is just a snapshot of how a tool and AI can be used for teachers as a brainstorming partner in the work.
And it's also showing that just so you can see how quickly things get generated, so you can see it in real time.
So you've heard a lot about how adults are using AI, saw some examples. We're going to shift and talk a little bit about AI and our students, because that's sort of like our next level of work. What does this look like for kids? Obviously, those guidelines are going to be really important in sort of setting up the guardrails for both adults using it, but also how are we using it with students? In addition to that, there are curricular implications. And so another level of work that the tech committee will take on this year is to start thinking about a vertical framework that clearly articulates learning goals for students from, we're going to talk at the tech committee, but we're thinking maybe grade 3, but on a very superficial level up to grade 12. So vertically at the end of each grade level, what would we expect kids to know about AI? And what would we expect them to know how to use AI? And so that will be the work of the committee and the work of the tech committee, but also the work of the CCI committee this year. And so now I'm going to shift it over to some really amazing forward-thinking pilot work that Carla Wojtowicz is doing alongside Sarah Zielinski. Carla had done a significant amount of PD around AI. She is a champion of media literacy in district. I don't know if you know that, but you should. And so she really thinks about how kids are encountering content and digitally, and what does that mean for them, and how they interpret it and use it moving forward. So she brings a really unique perspective. So I'm going to pass it over to Carla and Sarah to talk a little bit about some of the work that they've been doing in the classroom.
I'm just going to start off with a brief overview, and I included new state mandates that are coming down for July 1st that require some instruction in media literacy. And I just put it up there just to basically toot our own horn because East Lyme is really ahead of this. It's not something we have been doing for years already. Information literacy has changed greatly. So we have had in East Lyme since the 2012-13 school year an assured research program where we teach students basic research skills, how to complete a research project and what that looks like. Those types of skills used to just transfer into general knowledge of how you use the internet. Part of those skills would include how to evaluate a website, and that used to be fine. What changed things are really two things. First, the 2016 election cycle was when we saw a sharp rise in the world of disinformation. And that happened because what also happened was the rise of social media. So for that to happen, social media had to become what it is now today. They go together. Our students, if you ask how many of them have a newspaper delivered to their house every day, almost nobody raises their hand because that's just not how we as adults consume news anymore. Whereas if you ask most adults in this room, if you grew up in a house that got the newspaper delivered every day and the nightly news on, everybody would probably raise their hand. So we have to recognize that our students are not going to encounter current events in the way that we did when we were younger. They get all of their information, not just from their cell phones, but specifically from social media, which is frightening. So when this all happened and during that 2016 election cycle, there was a few studies released by the Stanford History Education Group. They've since changed their name to the Digital Inquiry Group. They're now DIG. They actually did specific studies to measure students' ability to kind of reason with what they're seeing online. It was across different socioeconomic backgrounds, college down to middle school, and it was all basically disastrous results. And after reading that study, they had a lot of free materials available to teachers, and I started to say, this is really important. Sarah Zielinski has always been my partner in crime. I can call her up and be like, hey, so can you give me some of your time? And she's, without her, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. So we developed these news literacy units together. So we've been doing that since the 17-18 school year. And then last year, Claudine Kelly supported us in having to revamp them because now so much has changed because of AI. Our goals, which we printed out for you, just so you could see the news literacy goals for 7th grade and 8th grade, they are taught as 2-week units. And Sarah will touch upon how the learning continues after those units are completed. We put a little asterisk next to the ones that are AI focused. So you'll see on this slide, I didn't put all of the goals for the whole 2 weeks. I just focused on AI. Our goal is to get students to understand what AI is. During these units, we're not starting to use AI with them. We're trying to teach them what it is. Every single one of them can tell you ChatGPT. And let's face it, a lot of them have used ChatGPT, maybe in ways we don't want them to, but they probably can't tell you what it is. So our goals in 7th grade include getting them to understand what makes generative AI different from the AI that we have had for a long time, things that Shannon mentioned, like Siri. And so we're trying to get them to see generative AI. What is that? What makes it unique? And what are the pros and cons? And then we start focusing on AI bias and the problems with how it gets started and what those implications look like in real life. So we start out with examples to get them to understand it, like that include fruit. But when we move on to a real life example, we have an article that was written by Reuters, and using some of Tiffany's things that she described as a teacher. When I first encountered this article, I thought this is a great article to use with our students, but it is going to be pretty much inaccessible for most of my students. So I just copied it into ChatGPT and said, please write this at a 7th grade reading level and shorten it because the length would still also be too overwhelming for most of our students. So that's something else in your printout. You can compare the original article with the rewritten one. It took me maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes to do it. And it was a major time saver. And it took something that I wouldn't have been able to use and made it accessible for students. The point of the article is that Amazon had piloted a few years ago an AI bot to help it with its hiring process. The job was specifically more tech related. What AI learned was through the internet that historically tech jobs are often male dominated. And so it made the conclusion that women are not good at this job. And so it went through resumes, and any resume could identify as a female. It just tossed that resume completely. So we're taking it from getting students to understand what generative AI actually is, defining it, how it works, using some more simple examples of how bias happens, and then kind of hitting it with, this is how it looks in real life. In 8th grade, we start to move on to AI lessons that are going to focus more on deep fakes. We have real life cases of deep fakes happening. There was a case in Maryland actually involved in education with someone creating deep fakes, and just what that looks like again in real life and understanding the AI behind it. And then we continue the learning.
Yeah, so much of this, when we had some release time last year to really
take what we'd been doing for 6 years at that point and bring in AI. We had already been teaching a lot about bias, ways to, how to know what sources to trust and what to do when we encounter things on social media. But so throughout the year, when we talk about current events, which we do with any unit and any of our curriculums, the concepts of credibility and bias, those continue to come out, and we do try to teach these units towards the beginning of the year so that we can continue to pull from that. But by the time they're in 8th grade, they've had the whole 7th grade unit, and we have more flexibility with where we put this because they've already had this exposure and these concepts. Sensational headlines, there's so much with that, especially as they're getting their news from social media. So we talk a lot about, what maybe the intention behind some headlines is. Does it strike a big emotion? And, how do we verify where we're getting that from and be able to balance it if there is an element of bias in it. And then grade 8, Carla will be piloting with one of the teachers that's teaching that social studies curriculum this year, but piloting the use of AI in the Assured Research Project, which we tend to do on Westward Expansion.
The purpose of one of the goals of the Westward Expansion Project is to look at history through multiple perspectives. Students research one group. So we'll still be doing all of the research skills, note-taking, citations, all of that type of stuff. Students are then going to create a storyboard, first written, more physical. Can you do a storyboard that illustrates your learning about what was Westward Expansion like for your group? And then we're going to have them use an AI tool, maybe Canva, I haven't decided yet, to prompt it to create a storyboard for them and to compare and contrast. Did it accurately reflect what you were hoping it would? So it's a chance for them to actually use AI in a way that's appropriate, but then maybe also see and imply some of these ideas of bias and what's missing from learning when AI takes over. So you may see me again in the spring.
Yeah, we thought maybe it'd be great to bring back the group and share the experience, the students to
Have the
share with
students,
you, what did those images actually look like? So.
Great.
So that concludes our presentation, and we would open it up to questions.
Yeah, oh my goodness, there's so many really exciting this is just beyond impressive, the amount of work clearly that went into even preparing this presentation, let alone all the kind of leaps and bounds that clearly we've made in this space. I think my question pertains to both teacher use of AI tools and student use of AI tools. I think at just like a high level, I'm curious. It was really helpful to see like specific instances of kind of which tools teachers are finding really effective and how they're using them, especially for differentiation. That was very exciting. I'm curious if we have a larger, is there some sort of strategy or process when it comes to recommending, and because there's so many tools out there, it feels like there's new ones popping up every single day. Do we have a process as far as recommending and kind of vetting our teacher and student tech stack, if you will? Both from how do we make sure that we have the most effective tools in front of our teachers and in front of our kids, but then also from a data privacy, there have been districts that, have accidentally put student PII into chatbots. Kind of curious if we have a more bird's eye strategy around our tech stack.
Well, in terms of the student data privacy, we absolutely have a process associated with that. We have an approval process. So if a teacher wants to introduce any new software, including an AI, whatever it might be, that goes through the curriculum fellow or the CIL. And that's something that Connecticut has a great database that allows for us to look to see if it's data compliant, and or we can request that be looked into further. So I would say we've got that piece covered. In terms of your question around more systemic, I think that's the work we're setting out to do. Right now, our Teaching and Learning Hub is the space that teachers need to go to identify what are the approved programs that are available to our teachers in relation to whether it be chatbots or these AI tools. And so that is the only space they should go to look to see whether or not, and we do have an AI section of our website, our Teaching and Learning Hub, that has some of the professional development links, some how-to videos, and on the programs that we have vetted, the tech committee has looked at and we've put out as these are ones that, you know, we would encourage you to use. We haven't done any of that really in the way of new student, like we don't really have a student chat bot out there yet, but that will be the work this year. And typically, anything that's data privacy related in terms of student use is gonna come at a cost. And so that will come through my department, where we'll pilot some things and identify, you know, what is the best program associated with what we're looking for.
That was my second question. If we have like enterprise license agreements with any specific.
We are using a ton of AI. So many of our instructional software that we do have contracts with and that we pay for annually have AI embedded in them. In terms of I think the piece that we haven't explored yet is that chatbot piece. We have some options. Our Securely is supposed to be coming out with a chatbot that can be very closely monitored, just like we monitor, the use of programming in the classroom. We're still waiting for that to be released. And then there's Khan's product, Khanmingo.
And Magic School has, like, the
And
Magic
Magic
School has a students facing side that's very similar, and then a teacher can create like a classroom. So that's that next level work. And just to reassure you too, that was one of the first things we talked about was like privacy, student privacy. So not to ever enter anything into the chats.
Yeah.
Last question, somewhat related. Are we finding that for our software tools that we already are utilizing, just like looking ahead to budget season to kind of brace myself, are we seeing like upsells in order to use the AI functionality?
So not so far with Securely. That was supposed to be included in what we already pay for. That was last spring. They showed us, we had a demo of the beta product. We're still waiting. And they did tell us that it would be included. So, not yet, but I mean, in terms of tech software, we see anywhere between 3 and 15% increase on an annual basis, just generally speaking. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I will let you know that I push back on many contracts that we get. It's a arduous process, but yeah, we try to keep it between 3 and 5%. So, I think though, to your point, Lee, that the importance of guidance and also policy is going to be really critical in this work and in moving forward. Because as Ms. Cozzolino said, when we are working with teachers, there's this level of fear or uneasiness, so that, if we can get this out and say, hey, these are the, parameters that we've set for you. And continue to build the capacity of our teachers to move confidently forward with some of this, I think that will be really helpful.
Thank you.
Bill, just one comment. It'd be really interesting to see how the economics of AI evolve, because you could see where some of the businesses, you have to incorporate AI to be competitive, though price maybe doesn't change. Because I think Copilot is in the Microsoft products, and I don't think you pay extra for it. I think that.
Oh, no, you pay extra for it.
I don't think.
You can have a very basic use of
Okay.
Copilot, but if you want the Copilot that created that presentation this evening, I forgot to mention that presentation was created by Copilot.
Okay.
We developed an outline in Word of what the presentation would be, and I asked Copilot to create a slide deck to go with it. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty, but it was a really nice starting place. And
that
we
was
pay
a
for that
paid
product.
version. Okay, just like ChatGPT, there's a free so I guess it's gonna be interesting how that all.
Get the basic functionality. for
Yes,
free, but
yes.
really good
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, on paper for free.
Yeah, exactly.
First off, I agree, this is great. I want to focus, I have a few questions. I want to focus mostly on the middle school piece. I commend you for your personal commitment to try to help kids sort through the information that they are dealing with. So thank you, because I think that is a huge problem the whole country's got to deal with. So I'm assuming you see all 7th and 8th graders. How much time do they get to learn about what you just presented? Are we talking about a couple of lessons or?
So the full units start to finish, like the full news literacy units are 2 full weeks. So they'll come every single day for their entire social studies class for 2 weeks. So to do the lessons. And then with the idea that, you know, then when they're done with me, Sarah or the other social studies teachers are still continuing the concepts just through.
And do you have a means of evaluating how successful they are? And I'm assuming some kids are kind of having these aha moments with all, because this is, you know.
Yeah. So we actually have pre and post assessments that we've created. There's a whole vocab, there's a whole vocabulary unit we've developed to go along with it. And then we have, like all in Google Forms, we basically give them a pre-test, so we have some data, and then we give them a post-test. And then of course, throughout it, like today, we did a lesson, then it accompanied a little learning goal for them to compare a few websites. And then we'll like evaluate those little mini things along the way too. So we have entrance tickets, exit tickets, small assignments, and then the beginning and end of unit exams to measure growth overall.
I guess this is maybe not just directed at you, but Annalise, is there a follow-up at the high school? Is there a repeat of this? Because I think, you know, as kids start to get to voting ages and stuff like that, this is really relevant. I think that I
Yeah.
hope we have the same energy at the high school.
We say that to them, like, you know, 4 years, 5 years, you can all vote. And we try to relate to them, and yeah, 7th and 8th grade, they're not.
Thinking about
quite as-
voting and stuff.
yeah, not quite as, you know, energized, and I keep saying, I promise you, when you get older, this is so important. But yeah, you can speak to that.
I mean, I think Carla, as the fellow, has done a really great job at, again, that vertical articulation of at what each level, you know, students should be walking away from. That is articulated at the high school level, a little bit harder to make it common assured, just given the high school schedule and, you know, courses, and it functions differently than a middle school. We have talked about the possibility of actually offering courses in news media literacy as an elective. That, you know, whether that's something that, you know, I would hate to make another mandated class for kids because they're already so pinholed into spaces, but, you know, an option related to, that.
Well, I guess the one that pops in my head is everyone's got to take civics or US history, right? So that to me would be the logical place where they could all get hit with some, you know,
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
digest.
There is some things that we build into freshman wellness, but we tend to like to build everything into freshman wellness, so there's.
But I think it's more relevant in the civics age
Yeah.
group than it is in the freshman age group personally. But I think again, thank you for doing this. I know that this came from your own personal passion to make this right, so.
I'm an information literacy nerd. Get excited about it.
Advocate.
Lisa.
I have 2 questions. Thank you for kind of exposing us to the work that's happening. It's really exciting. It's also, I think, you know, helping, as you guys said, put East Lyme a little bit ahead in terms of our readiness. And I think both my questions are a little bit related to that. And so one, you know, we know people are using it. We know students are using it. Teachers there's things happening sort of outside of the framework that you've established. And in terms of, you know, it potentially coming into the classroom, do we have the thinking around sort of guidance, or what are we saying about AI usage is happening outside of the, you know, kind of parameters that have been established?
So are you saying almost like a misuse of AI or?
Necessarily, I mean, if you know, a teacher is taking it outside of, you know, in their home, right? And just kind of like, okay, asking a prompt and kind of creating, and, you know, and I think that, and, you know, whatever it may be misused, right? A student might go and bring something created by AI into a lesson, and it's, you know, kind of outside of this space. And do we have guidance that you know, now, I know we have to kind of catch up with guidance and policy and all of that,
Yeah.
but in terms of like where, you know, just sort of our knowledge of what's happening with usage now.
Oh, I see. So to what
Outside
extent
of
are
the
folks using it generally speaking?
Yeah,
So we talked about that. We did a survey back in last spring to get a sense of how many folks were using AI. We had about, I think it was 100 responses out of 300, you know, over 300 certified staff. So not really a great response. It was a very busy time of year with the spring. But of those 100 that responded, 50% said they were using AI, and mostly they were using it to sort of help them with their lesson planning. We're gonna do another survey. We're gonna talk about it tomorrow at the tech committee and put an additional survey out to get another sense of how are our staff using it? Or how do they think students are using it? Just to get a better idea now that we're.
like step one, to kind of find out what like.
Well, yeah, now that, I mean,
How it's.
yeah, we have a general idea, but you know, I think it's changing so quickly that I suspect that the results we got back last spring will be incredibly different now just what, 6 months later, you know? So I think that dipstick is gonna be really important as we continue to move forward and then get a better sense of what tools people are using or not using, kind of thing. So.
Thank you. And my other question is related to our engagement with parents and families. And I suspect there's sort of, you know, a need to kind of connect the knowledge of the, about the tools and the capabilities and what we're doing with it. And what is the thinking around kind of bringing that piece together?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely part of the work of the tech committee should be talking about guidance for families at home. I think that's the work this year is what are we sending home in the way of information to families that number one communicates what our beliefs and values are around the use of AI, and then how do they support their children at home in relation to that.
And I'm thinking too about the families that are maybe older parents or not completely familiar with AI and kind of looking at it and going, what is this? It's probably a really bad comparison, but when math curriculum was changing, right? And there was a lot of that feedback in terms of I don't even understand how you're doing this, you're mapping out the process and just kind of connecting the what, right? Not even so much with the guidance, but kind of bringing home potentially information that's really new. I mean, you know, new in terms of what it's the capabilities of the tool, or, you know, maybe sort of there's this like the baseline understanding, but even the presentations have had here are, you know, I think we have a broader appreciation for all of the different things that are happening and just kind of bringing families up to speed that necessarily there so they can see that the same stuff their student is seeing.
Like almost like a workshop for families?
I don't know what, but something to kind of just sort of.
Yeah, like a family university series that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some YouTube shorts that like University of Pennsylvania, Vanderbilt have put out to kind of give some basics, but I think
Yeah, there probably is stuff already out there, you know.
but people probably not, it's like the poor are more likely to want to hear it from you versus watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And we
kids
could
might
do
rather
some
watch the video.
demonstrations like we did tonight. Yeah.
I had just one question. It's more of an opinion or get thoughts, and you may have different opinions. So when I think about AI for teachers and AI for students, the pro of each is you have this collaborative partner that you can kind of interact with and advance your thoughts and their thought and kind of put it all together. And both students or teachers can do that. The downside maybe is then, and maybe from a teacher's perspective, but then maybe it's also from a student. You teachers then not talk to each other as much, and I just rely on I have my AI bot, I can go on and collaborate versus talking like, I think it's both. I mean, I think you want both. And then for students, you can see the positive, oh, I can get help on my AI tool. But I actually also want them to get help from their teacher or parents or other people. So how do you, I don't know, what do you think about the collaboration piece and how is it optimized or what is the best way to think about this?
I think as professionals, the way we've used it is it's like a launching point sometimes to get the conversation going. So like, it's just like, it's a nice way to start the conversation sometimes. You come prepared with like almost like a draft, like you would have written a draft in the past. Now, maybe AI is helping you to formulate that. And even when we work with Annalise, it's more about, we use AI to make the job simpler, but then we're still talking about like, how are we presenting this? What are we doing? Who's, so it's still, you have to have that human component. Or it's just not gonna work because it's not perfect. It doesn't make everything easier. It just makes it so that your thought process is kind of well mapped out and you kind of have a place to begin, I think.
Yeah, and we're using it in our current structure. So we're using it during PLC time, which is a collaboration time. We're using it during a coaching cycle. So we set, we identified a need, we might just go use the tool to see what it queries and say, all right, is this, especially for differentiation, it's been a game changer, especially as we're trying to, support our multilingual students and stuff like that. So I think we've been doing it that way. So it hasn't created zones of isolation. The other side with the student learning, you bring up a great point, and this is where we have to be careful where we go forward. It's a language model, right? And as I mentioned before, you yourself, the user, have to have a lot of background knowledge and schema and vocabulary to know whether or not what you're getting is accurate, reliable, or valid, right? So as adult users, we can do that because we have a lot of expertise behind us based on our own experiences. When we're looking at younger users, especially they're novice learners, right? They're still building their schema and their knowledge. But it can be a powerful tool for clarification, for giving examples in that moment help. You could teach them to ask questions, but again, sometimes if you've worked with struggling learners too, they don't know exactly what to ask. So it's not necessarily going to replace interventions. No way. You need that human element and, but there's places where we can integrate it as a sort of like we've been talking about for structures, for brainstorming, clarification, vocabulary, language. I see a lot of power in that.
I think a lot of it is gonna be teaching students the limits and part of that background that we're doing of like, what are the pros and cons? But I also see, especially the older students at the high school, kind of even like career pathways. Like some of these kids are gonna be the kids that are creating the programs that they'll think of things that I never could think of. So I think that's, of course, much further down the road, but I think that going in that direction with students who show an affinity for that type of work could be somewhere where we're going eventually.
And ages too, right? Middle school versus high school. And like as high school, we have things in our curriculum called performance tasks. These are supposed to be those authentic kind of project-based learning that's incorporated to a unit. So there's places where, there might be some innovation there. But then there's other places where we probably don't want to, put this tool there.
And I would say too, that like with all of this, some of our end of unit assessment kind of tasks, we're still using Socratic Seminar and things that you can have done all your planning on AI. If you don't know what you're doing though, then that does come out in the wash somewhere. So we just are, really making sure that we keep those kinds of, tasks that require authenticity in there. Yeah.
And on that note, I know that at the high school level, academic honesty, and you just alluded to that, is a real issue. And I know for English teachers and for any classes where essay writing is a big part, this has been huge. There are AI checkers out there, so you can copy paste a student's essay into the checker. It'll tell you what % was maybe generated by AI. But these are really difficult conversations to have if you're gonna basically say, I think you plagiarize. We've just redefined what plagiarism is, because the old school plagiarism was, here, I found it online, let me look at it side by side. But every time you ask a question into ChatGPT, it's gonna answer it differently. So that's, for me personally, from a policy standpoint, from in terms of academic honesty, those are some of the conversations we need to have too about how we teach students to use it so that they don't do that. And also what happens when they do. Because I don't know that we have that right now,
Yeah, really helpful and definitely there's some real positives. Also some real They had holes that we can go through and down and want to try to avoid and teach our students. Whether it's here or as they move on and whatever they do in life, it's you know, you need to be able to think for yourself, and critical thinking and all that is really important. So we can't lose that. So thank you. Interesting.
I had another question too.
Jill and then Bill.
Just a quick question. If I'm in high school, third year English, and I have to write, I don't know what you write anymore in third year English. And let's say I have to write a paper and I have to footnote it and I have to have a certain amount of sources. But then I just go to ChatGPT, or whatever it's called, and just put my initial thoughts in. It writes a paper for me and then I submit it in. So how are you gonna catch me?
So,
Yeah.
as I
Yeah, go ahead.
thinking about this, we know. So
Okay.
you just know, I think that not just English teachers, but
College, they're not gonna know.
they just don't know.
They'll know based on their students' performance.
Yeah, it's syntax, it's
They do? Okay.
it's you just know when a student's writing is not theirs.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, and then in the olden days, you would just maybe copy paste paragraph and put it into Google, and it would, if you were lucky, you got, you know, the first hit,
I
but
didn't have.
this is a lot more complicated, so.
Okay.
But you can just tell by the level of writing, honestly, but you can also, and actually I did this as a ChatGPT query the other day, I forgot why I did it, but I asked it to incorporate errors, like grammatical errors and things like that. And so, and it will do it. It'll write it in a way that isn't as smooth. So that's why the level of questioning, and again, this is for sort of nefarious purposes, you can use them for good as well. But you know, if a student was savvy to, well, my English is going to know, let me try to incorporate some errors in here, make it sound like it's more like a ninth grade voice, then it can attempt to do that. I don't know how successful it is, but it will throw some stuff in there to throw the teacher off if you wanted to, and you're savvy enough to ask it.
I will say one thing that I've used before, and it's not, you know, kids will always find a way around it somehow, but you can view the version history of every document a student does. So if you're submitting, okay, we use Google Classroom, so you submit me a Google Doc, I can see every single autosave that document made.
Yeah, what if I could give it to you on paper? You know?
Yeah, I don't even think students would know how to.
Although, it is a really nice alternative is writing an essay by hand during class time, if you really want to, you know. So we've talked about that too.
Seriously, nothing comes by paper anymore?
I don't think they even know how to, yeah.
I don't know how to write.
I know they know how to.
know they don't do cursive.
They not to read or write.
Yeah, Phil, you had some questions?
Yeah, this is kind of a side thing, but I was just thinking, I know that you know, I'm sure many of you watched The Social Dilemma and know how the algorithms kind of tailor to what we, you know, tend to look at. You know, it's so easy now. I go to YouTube and I'm fighting to get pulled down that not go down that rabbit hole because it knows me so well that these are all things that I would be interested in. Does ChatGPT also, have you guys figured out whether that also profiles you as a user to say, oh, this guy is always asking engineering type questions or whatever, or I wonder, does it generate its responses based on, you know?
Yeah, it does learn who you are within, that's what the chat is. So it will remember your previous queries and conversations, because I've had that where it brought up something from like a while ago and I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? So it can do that, yeah.
I had a chat that was more than a year old. I went back to it last week. And it kept the same tone. You know, of the chat, like it was actually humorous in a way because we were kind of, I was talking about, well, how many licks does it take to get a center or a lollipop? And it was this kind of conversation we were having over like a couple of weeks. And so it kind of kept that same tone about it, even though I hadn't been to the conversation in a while. I kind of came up with another question in my head and I said, oh, I can ask ChatGPT, but it kind of remembered that. I don't know, it just kept it in the conversation, which was weird to me. But, you know, it was interesting.
Well, real quick, you six are the leaders, right? And you're trying to get our faculty on board. And I'm just wondering, you said you had 50% of a third of the population responded to the survey that you put out.
Yeah.
And how are people reacting to your enthusiasm and, hey, this is the best next thing since sliced bread?
I think for myself, I actually am not even that enthusiastic about it. My husband's also an educator and he's always been like, this is great. And I've always been like, I don't know about this. So I think, I mean,
Yeah, I
Chad is
think
a
this
coach.
group,
it's
I think
it's
it's been very
meeting people where they
practical
are.
about this. We were really addressing about, this is what it can do, and these are possibilities, and these are things we yet don't have answers for and have concerns about. So I think we're approaching it through that lens. So we really have been meeting people where they are, you know, on their journey, not saying everyone has to use AI, but the goal behind it was, if we're gonna think about implications and, you know, because you know what's gonna happen, everyone's gonna have their new shiny thing that's gonna say, this is gonna radically change everything in education. We educators have to understand how it works, and you don't do that unless you're in it yourself to see what the pitfalls are, or what the benefits are, or how it's actually generating things before we can start thinking about, like, again, that, you know, what does this mean for my discipline? What does it mean for student learning? And just because ChatGPT can do something, doesn't mean, to your point before, like, it doesn't mean we take away those skills and knowledge from kids just because a tool can do it, right? It's just what I said before, is I think the best users are students that have tons of knowledge themselves. And then those are the best users of AI. Those are the people who are going to take off in the AI industry. So as a district, like, the more we're doing with that knowledge building and disciplinary studies, that's where that AI piece is going to be essential. And I think you're going to see that when they get to high school, like, they're going to be able to use it in different ways.
I think that's where the coaches come in too, because you're gonna have the people who naturally are inclined and interested to do this, and they will use it and figure it out on their own. And then the coaches are there to help introduce it to teachers who are maybe unsure, how is this useful to me? And like Tiffany's example is a great example, how she can come in and show a teacher, this is how you can use this tool to help you. And they might not have branched out without that support.
And then will there be cohorts like everything else? Because you figure a third are gonna jump on board, a third are gonna be like, and then a third will be like, no way, I'm not touching it, right? Just like everything else. So the people who are gonna be enthusiastic and robust, are they going to then be the ones who will help to build that kind of community to?
I mean, part of the work of the tech committee this year is that the members of the tech committee are gonna take on an action research project based on the use of AI, whether it's from a teacher use perspective or like a student use. And my hope is that we can then take those to the faculty members and demonstrate examples and just continue to build an understanding of how, there are so many different ways it can be used. But for me, what's most important is really having that vertical framework to anchor ourselves to, which is those learning outcome, the guidelines for adults, but then the learning outcomes for kids by grade level. Otherwise, people are just going to be all over the place in terms of when and how they're using it. And for me, you know, I think it's our responsibility to have a very clear scope and sequence associated with what do we want kids to expect, what we would expect kids, grades 3 to 12, what they know about AI and how they use it. And then how does that get embedded into the curriculum that's already written, or special units that might come out of like the Library Media Center, like you heard of an example tonight. So, you know,
I think to that point too, I think some of the information could be taught kindergarten, K1.
Yeah.
2, what's true, what's not true, what's fiction, what's.
Right, exactly.
What is bias? How did you, how are you prejudiced to feel a certain way in the story, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And also be built in vertically at that level, so it doesn't have to happen at the middle school or high school.
Those are some pilots will start to come in to play, you know, so
Absolutely.
like that, but obviously those guidelines first to give everybody direction. Something like
Yeah.
So much.
Well, thank you so much all for all the work you're doing and coming here. Really appreciate it.
It's an amazing team, yeah. Amazing team.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Have enough?
Nobody wants to stay and help me with my data presentation?
It's Annalise's day today.
Do you guys need a couple rainbow breaths before we move into the next? Okay.
Everybody did receive the larger presentation, right?
Yeah.
Because I know we're pressed for time and that was a lot.
I like that format though, being able to like dig into it.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah, that
Annalise,
worked out.
yeah, I printed it out because I'm really old.
Yes, all right. I'm happy, Jill.
It's actually nice to be able to
Hard
kind of
to
name
find.
her.
It's officially, so we're moving on to discussion and information, the SBA review of assessment data. You know,
Yeah, so this will be a little bit condensed from what it has been in years past. But similar in format. Waiting for my slide deck to catch up on Zoom. Okay. Oh, my screen sharing has been paused.
Right on.
Uh,
No, please.
I'll try it. I'll just try it again. So as you know, I like to kind of look at things from a glow and grow perspective. So we'll start with our glows. So again, this is our SBA, our summative assessment analysis. So that includes NGSS, the national, not the national, well, yes, it's the national standards, but it's Connecticut's assessment associated with science. Our standards-based assessment, which is used for math and literacy in grades 3 through 8. And our SAT, which is used as our standardized assessment in grade 11. So our glows is that we've seen a slight improvement over math and literacy from last year to this year. And we remain in the top quartile of our DERG. And obviously we score above state average in all areas. We continue to outperform our state and DERG. EPLS is leading the DERG in literacy in grades 3 and 11, meaning we're #1 in the DERG. I'll show you that in just a second. Our student-centered coaching model and high-dose tutoring program have supported growth in key areas. Assessment data in grade 5 has shown signs of improvement. We talked a little bit about that last spring, but we have more work to do in that area. Our grows, we have seen a slight dip in science performance overall. That continues to be a little bit of a trend for us. I'll show you what that's looked like. Our achievement gaps in some subcategories are still in need of attention. We'll take a closer look at that in just a second. Academics, post-high school plans, schedule, and peers are at the top sources of stress at the secondary level. In addition to this, we take a look at that survey data. I forgot to mention that. So we'll take a look at that in some of our Satchel Post data. For that last bullet, students indicate that they're struggling with their relationships with each other. These are some of our focus areas this year, as all of you know. Again, as I mentioned before, Smarter Balance, Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS, SAT, and survey data are all of our measurements. This first slide looks a little bit different than what I've done in years past. I took the state data out because it made it very clunky and hard to read. So now we're just looking at East Lyme data. This is comparing all students, which are the bottom 3 set of data in science, math, and ELA to the different subcategories of students. And as you can see, we have most of our subcategories falling below our average, with our Asian population scoring above. What I will say about this data, and it is a glow associated with data, is every single one of these subcategories realized an improvement from last year of at least 2 percentile points. So our students with disabilities realized an improvement in all 3 areas. Our white students realized an improvement in all 3 areas. The only exception is that our Hispanic or Latino population saw a slight dip in math this year. Otherwise, all the subcategories that you're looking at have had at least a 2 percentile increase, with no more than 4.5% in one area.
Is there an overlap, Annalise, excuse me for interrupting, of the categories, the subcategories?
Is there an overlapping?
Yes.
Yes, there would be an overlapping.
Right.
Yeah.
Question, does this, when you say Asians, do you include like China Asians and then Asian Indians? Are they grouped together in one group?
Well, I would say there's the more than two races and then Asian. So,
Okay, but this is both, both populations.
yes, yeah,
I just wanted to be sure. Okay.
And if I remember, compared to the state, who uses all these breakdowns as well, we're better than.
well above.
Well above the state,
well
in
above the
any
state.
way we
In
cut that,
any of
every way we
these.
cut that. Okay.
There's a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
big difference between
Good.
state averages and
One
ELPS.
more quick question, what's the difference between high needs and students with disabilities?
High needs is a compilation of different components. So it's a compilation of students with disabilities, free and reduced lunch. It's almost like a super group within these subcategories.
Okay.
Okay.
How many people are in each category? Is that what is shown up here?
Yes, so I did realize after I posted the agenda that the data points were not in there, so I will change that on the slide deck
Thank
that was shared. So obviously, though, we have work to do still with our categories. I will tell you that our focus on explicit instruction directly ties on supporting closing gaps, and we're going to take a look at some growth data that is demonstrative of that. Okay, so now we're just going to take a look at averages of our students over the course of or in comparison with our DIRG. So the district performance index is the average score of the students on the assessment. So this is for ELA district-wide. This year we landed 4th in our DIRG. Last year we were 5th.
Just my way of looking at this, people look at it their own way, is I don't, being 73.2 versus 73.1 versus 73.8, not statistically relevant. I kind of look, there's a grouping. You can go plus or minus 1% or
Correct.
something, and one year we end up at 2nd or 3rd, next year we're 8th. It could be like
They are
infinitesimal change,
tenths of points apart from one another. Correct.
but we're in the top grouping, which is.
That's correct. Yeah. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that observation. So this is math. We did make a significant jump from 8th last year to 3rd this year in our DIRG overall.
We are DIRG. G.
And I had mentioned we saw a dip in our science performance. So you can see that here. Last year we were 5th. This year we are 7th. Still highly competitive in our score. And, you know, I suspect that some of the focus on literacy at the elementary level is having something to do with this. You know, there's only so much folks could do at one time. But as we get further along in our implementation of our Wit and Wisdom curriculum, then we will focus on bringing back those science standards that are connected to the content area that will support the performance on the assessment. Jamie?
Remind me what years we do science?
We start in grades, it's grades 5, 8, and 11.
Thank you. I knew it wasn't every year. I just couldn't remember which years.
So these are, I'm going to just show you bookend. So grade 3 and grade 11. So this is where kids start taking the assessments and where they end. So in grade 3, for ELA, we are leading the DIRG. Last year we were 7th, so a nice increase there. And then we sort of were in the same spot for math for grade 3.
Is there anything we did differently in EL? I mean, it's fantastic. Is there anything that we feel like, oh, we did this differently or?
I mean, we piloted some literacy program, which could actually been a bit of an interruption, you know, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't say for sure, Eric, that was,
That sounds okay.
but what I can say is that the work of the coaches and the support in the classrooms has been a significant help in supporting the growth of our students. And I do think longer term, a primary resource is really going to help us project us forward as well. And then here's grade 11. So ELA and math for grade 11. Seeing a dip in math in grade 11. We're taking a closer look at that with the high school. I know Maggie Gross is working with her department on. We think there are some curricular implications happening at the high school in relation to our geometry curriculum. So we are diving deeper in that area to see if we can get out ahead of this. Last year, the math department did do some question analysis to see what is the content being asked in the SAT. Not that we would necessarily want to teach to the test, but is our curriculum designed in a way that is preparing them in a timely fashion when they take it in 11th grade? So that's the kind of analysis that's happening at the high school right now. And then for ELA grade 11, we are leading the DERG. All right, so that was average performance. Now I'm going to shift to growth. So this is ELA growth. We're looking at 5th grade here. The graph on the left was the percentage of students who were meeting their growth target at the end of the year for the SBA assessment. And as you know, we were really low for ELA last year with 28%. This year, we've actually seeing a huge increase in improvement in that students meeting their growth target to 43%. So we went to, yes.
Can you just briefly, like high level, how do we set growth targets for?
So SBA does that actually for students based on the assessments they've taken historically. So there's an algorithm on the back end that sets a growth target for a student. And if the student meets that growth target, they wind up in this percentage. There's another number of percentage of growth met. I'm going to show that to you in just a second. That's a different percentage that helps to better measure, rate of growth versus a number of kids that met their growth. Yeah.
Did that change year to year? Is that part of? I mean.
No, nothing about the SBA assessment has changed for quite some time. So essentially, this is.
It would have changed for all, so it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, so ELA saw a real improvement. Math did not in the way of where we fell within the DERG. But I feel like this isn't a real true picture of some of the growth that is happening. So I'm going to show you some of that. But I will point out that last year we were 24% of our students met their growth target. This year, 30%. Now we're still at the bottom of the DERG in terms of growth. But I do want to kind of explain some of those growth metrics to you that goes a little bit deeper in this. So that was 5th grade, but we said about the gap, how kids fall behind in 5th grade, the transition, the things that we're working associated with that. But when they get to 8th grade, historically, we would want to see them in a space where they're really starting to excel. So these two graphs are historic data based on 8th grade. So the 27-18 was the 8th grade cohort in 2017-18. It's not rough cohort analysis, it's just 8th graders, does that make sense? Okay. So the one on the left is the growth rate or the percentage of students that have met their growth targets. As you can see, historically, since we got as far back as the data goes, 2017-18, we have the highest percentage of students in 8th grade meeting their growth target historically in the past 5 years. So that's really great. That's great news. And then we went from, we were sort of, in between the 40 and 50 range for a few years. Well, last year so of that 70% is students met 70% of their growth target last year. So, even though not all of them met 100% of their growth target, on average, students met 70% of their growth target. That's huge. Remember, we looked at the students who were below standard in the spring and how we saw a real dip in that. Even though we weren't necessarily pushing kids up to exceeding the standard, we were really reducing the number of students who were below standard. That's what you're seeing right here. So the rate of growth has gotten better for some of those students who are lower performing on the assessment. And that's exactly what we want to see. This is really, really good stuff. This is evidence that explicit instruction, the coaching model, you know, relying on a primary resource, all of the things we anchored ourselves to in terms of research-based strategies, we're seeing it in the data. Which is exciting. You guys don't look as excited as I am right now.
Retired. Very excited also.
Thank you.
Still,
We are
Lots to
excited.
still process. I might have missed this in the bigger deck. I think I did though. Do we have this data broken down by, like, have we seen any achievement gaps when it comes to like students with IEPs as far as hitting their growth targets? Did I miss that? Was that in here?
No, I did not include that data.
You have it?
I can't, it's not disaggregated that way on EdSite, but I probably could go in. It would take some digging, but I can look at what kind of report I can provide to you in terms of what you're looking for. So you're looking for growth data based on our subgroups. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Sure, we can take a look at that and see what I can put together for you. I'll also mention 8th grade also saw in ELA, same type of growth. So just, I know that I'm only putting math in front of you, but we saw similar growth in 8th grade there. So again, this is 7th grade, and you can see, look at our 7th graders. They met 82%, almost 83% of their growth target last year, with, again, the highest in 5 years, 60% of our students meeting that target. Okay, so not as big of an increase here, but again, we're seeing really good promising data here for our 6th grade. And our 5th grade, like I said, still work to do. You can see the columns on these graphs are lower. We don't have kids where we want them to be, but we're still working on that and we're dedicated to that work. But you can see historically in the past 5 years, our students, you know, highest percentage of students meeting their growth target and highest percentage of growth target met in 5 years. Okay, so just shifting to some of the anecdotal information we have in relation to survey data. As you remember, we had Youth Voices come in last spring and provide you with a presentation. This question has taken on many different varieties, depending on the survey we've given, whether it was our own survey or the CRAC survey or the Youth Voices survey, but it's this question around anxiety and how it's impacted students over the course of the day. And it still continues to be a data point that is worth paying attention to. And the next slide digs a little bit deeper in terms of the,
Let me just go back.
oh, sure.
Just one,
Yeah, sorry, Eric.
so the answer options change.
Yes,
Which really does change how someone might answer it.
exactly.
Almost always versus always is very different. Almost never versus never. Almost never says, oh, yeah, sometimes.
Right.
Or even though
Right.
there is a sometimes.
So we are
Never
gonna,
is never.
Right.
Yeah.
we're gonna do the Youth Voices survey again this year, so I think definitely we will have comparative data.
Same
Yes.
answers, it's the
Yes.
same question,
We're
same.
not changing it this year.
Okay, good.
So that will help.
Thanks.
But I think even more importantly, they ask, you know, well, what are the sources of your anxiety over the course of the day? And you can see that those ones in the middle are the ones that are causing the most angst: academics, post-high school plans, schedule, and peers. I think I would argue are pretty up there. And then home life, family life. I'm really surprised at the social media. I'm really surprised at that. But
I think the definition of social media
is not
kind of permeates some of the other
maybe.
ones, and like my interaction with peers could be my social media issues versus, hey, I'm just looking at some TikTok videos, that's not causing me any stress. But the posts that they're putting on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever.
Snapchat or watching where my friends are.
Yes, all that, that's causing me stress. Yes.
social.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have a senior at home doing all of those things.
Snapchat, WhatsApp.
And I would tell you that if you were to survey my senior right now, she would be answering that all of these things are causing her anxiety right now. So there's these natural ebbs and flows of school where they are a part of their, their life. It's just a matter of making sure we have the support systems in place to help kids navigate through these challenging times, and provide them with the support they need to be successful. This was the pillar that I put in front of the AAA committee last year with regards to our Satchel Pulse survey. Just a reminder, this survey is very young. We don't have a lot of an incredible amount of responses to it, but an initial look, that question that says students at my school are respectful of each other was the lowest rated question of the peer-to-peer relationship pillar. And so that is a question that we're focused on. You guys made that a part of your goal in the board goals. It's a part of our district-wide culture and climate plan, and it's something that we're talking about at the building level as well.
Questions? I know we've kind of been asking questions.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much. That was really,
Thank you.
I like that format very much.
I like that.
Pre-reading
Pre-read.
and then going through.
Perfect. Awesome.
One quick question.
Okay.
One quick question. So it's showing some really nice growth and that's really exciting. And I'm sorry, we're not more enthusiastic.
Oh, it's okay.
Are there groups that are kind of not included in the data that?
You mean like subgroups?
Yeah. Are there some subgroups that, to kind of to Lee's question, that are not being included, that are being represented with this information with the bar graphs?
The bar graphs includes all students. So any student who took the assessment is included in that data.
There's some kids who don't take the assessment.
Correct. So they would not be included in that data.
Right. Yeah. And what percentage of the population would that be? Or don't we know?
We have less than 1% take the alternate assessment, because that's a state requirement.
But they wouldn't be.
It would not be in this data.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have a significant amount of opt-outs. I think maybe we had 20 opt-outs last year, which is not significant when you talk about statistical analysis of numbers of kids across grade levels. Yeah, so, yeah, to answer your question, the majority of students are represented in this data.
Thanks, Annalise.
Annalise has done an amazing job.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Especially
Thank
working
you.
with group, so thank you, Annalise.
You're only as good as the team you work with, so kudos to the building
Driving that team.
administration and our coaches and our fabulous teachers for all of the hard work that they do to make this happen, honestly. We have some great folks here in East Lyme. It's very exciting.
Okay, moving on, discussion action, finance, facilities and community. First, we have discussion action. We have a town building committee and we need to appoint 2 Board of Ed members. This is just so people don't get confused because last meeting, I was gonna say last week, that was 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. We did talk about I don't remember what it's called, the capital.
Capital
Improvement
committee, I think.
committee or something like that, where we talked about Chris, Mariana, Jeff and Jill would be part of that. This is not that. This is related to the roof projects that we have, and I'll let Jeff talk more, but the aquatic center and the Libby Haynes, that we do have a town building committee and we need 2 Board of Ed members on it. And our general thinking is we have our facility asset committee, which is Bill and Lisa, and that would naturally kind of fit to be on this committee, but Jeff, I don't know. what
Yeah,
else.
I think that's the perfect segue. We felt that both Bill and Lisa, because of, the background, they would fit nicely onto this. This really is the last step on the town side with this final formation of or resurrecting of the town building committee that will oversee the projects. And it makes sense to have, 2 Board of Ed members. Obviously, myself, Chris Lund, Ariana, at times as necessary, will be part of those meetings too. So we anticipate there'll be a ton of them because, well, some of you, Bill, you probably remember when the elementary projects
Yeah,
we used to have them
yeah,
regularly.
yeah.
But those were full school renovations of 3 schools at the same time. So these are just the 2 roof projects. So last step, and the next step will be for us on our side to bring the final architect forward on 10/21. We talked about that at FFO earlier tonight.
Jeff, I'm just curious, those town building committee meetings, are there gonna be unique meetings just for this project, or is this project gonna be part of a bigger meeting that includes other
That's a good question.
items that are
Bill.
being addressed?
I don't know if there's any, I'm trying to think of any other thing in town that might be going on, but I don't think so. So probably specific to the roofs. And then there could be, like, they started to blend our elementary projects, if you remember, with was the Emergency Operations Center started to merge together towards.
I'm just curious as to
Yeah,
what
so-
that meeting might look like, what those meetings.
Yeah, I think it would be right now, as of right now, specific to the 2 roof projects. With the next one, hopefully to follow for Niantic Center.
Questions? Want to make a motion?
I guess my question, do Elisa and Bill want to serve on the committee? Since you've offered them up, I'm curious as if they have any feedback. on
I
whether
did
or
do
not
a
they
little
want
pre-chat with.
to be on the committee. On this committee.
We got the pre-read.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that you guys were being offered up, so I was,
Yeah, I didn't want them to
that's
be
why my
surprised.
question is there.
We just thought it made so much sense because of their.
Just, I didn't know if it was a surprise or not. I don't know. All right, I would like to make a motion to appoint Elisa Bradley and Bill Derry to serve on the town building committee for the aquatic center roof project and the Lily B. Haynes Elementary School roof project.
Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain, oppose, abstain. I thought that.
Abstain?
That's up to you.
No, no,
It's
you
completely
can.
up to
I thought
you.
Elise and Bill were gonna be opposed.
Please don't.
Wouldn't look good.
We'll let you know when the first meeting is. Obviously, nothing is scheduled as of yet.
Okay, moving on, we have discussion action, steam boiler purchase at central office. So,
Yeah.
I'll let Jeff, kind of go through where we are on.
So let me just first start. We got a little wrinkle in this very recently, so it didn't make it into the information for the board this evening, but I'll bring it forward just because it's part of the discussion piece. So state inspection this summer, late in the summer had occurred, and our boiler at central office was found to have 2 holes in it, inoperable, cannot be turned, back on for the state inspection. So we have a 12 to 16 week window here of time for the order of a new one. That's what they're saying or estimating, how long it will take to get a new boiler in. And I think I shared the cost with you. You saw it in the attachment, the cost of that boiler. These are not cheap items. This is a steam boiler at $73,440. Yeah, and a lot of that is obviously labor. Half of it is labor to install it, sort of thing. Well, with 12 to 16 weeks, you can imagine if it doesn't come in within that time frame, it could be a little cold. There's no heat right now working at central office. Water's fine, that's separate, but there's no heat. Hence, Chris Lund has been working feverishly to find an alternative, and one of them is having a separate boiler brought on a trailer parked outside, which would be lined in through a steam hose and connected, to our building, which then the company would be responsible for maintaining operations, fixes, if not, and so forth and so on. There's a cost for that and a monthly rental charge as well, which was not included in this because we just received this. That cost is approximated to be $68,580. Yeah. So that would be for that timeframe of roughly the 3 months, basically is what that would be. And then if it continues.
40,000 possibly.
Roughly, it could be, yes. And now, if we get the boiler sooner, that's why we jumped it onto the agenda to get it approved tonight. Because we need the new one, then that will get ordered as soon as tomorrow, the next day.
Call Niantic Plumbing and ask them if they have like a boiler.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than just kind of sticking, because it's a whole steam, there's a whole unique.
Is there any way to upgrade? Like,
So we're not using like old fashioned heating?
Well, then you'd have to revamp the whole building. That's the problem, because every floor has these old, the heaters on the walls
vents.
that, are heating your grandmother, great grandfather's house.
Radiators.
They're radiators, which, are all steam fed. It's just an antiquated, very old system. So is part of the problem. And it's a big expense. Obviously, we're gonna try everything we can to expedite getting it to.
Volume.
Splits or what?
Splits, yeah.
I mean, those are all options. I just don't, a mini split could be, I'm guessing anywhere
You
from.
don't give us good heat. I have splits in my house for the air conditioning, and the heat is not the same. Let's say hot water baseboard, it wouldn't be worth it. Just my opinion as a consumer. But they're great when it comes to air conditioning.
I mean, I think there's kind of two parts to this. One is the long term, which is replacing the boiler 70,000, which is or whatever it is on here. Second is what do we do between now and the lead time that's needed to get this in and installed? And I guess, are there any options to house you and the team in one of our buildings or one of the town buildings for a few months that has heat? Or, something like that. So if you look at, are there any other options? I know we're pretty full at the schools. I don't know if there's anywhere. A few months.
Pipes to freeze.
Well, yeah, if you shutter the building for a period of time, obviously you have to be careful of, what transpires there.
If I could just comment, like, just from the perspective of my office, right, like to move our payroll department, our accounts payable, we're not really unfortunately equipped to move. Not like easily, I guess, so that's just something to
I guess if we move, then
think about.
there's no work from home option. Because, when we say our product is here, a lot of people have asked over the years, can I work from home? Because we don't work from home. Never been an option, and we would hate to see central office working from home, and we told everybody else, no, you can't do it. So, yeah, that would not be a good look. So, problem is too, I mean, my thought is if we did move, after the boiler came in earlier, which we want, then we've kind of up and moved, and what if it was for a short period? It just. But I understand, your perspective too. I think HR would have the same problem with access to the files.
Yeah,
But,
Is this the only company out there? Like,
well, they're the
honestly,
ones.
is this the only company that can get us a boiler?
I think Chris has looked and at different companies. I can't speak. He couldn't be here tonight, otherwise he would be. But this is the one that they got him the best deal for the boiler, and then obviously using the same company because they're gonna hook it all up ahead of time, so it's ready to go. They just unhook the one that's transportable, and then boom, in goes the new boiler. All their fittings are there, and they hook up.
Then I'm gonna ask a dumb question because I don't know anything about outside boilers. Isn't it subject to temperature? Is it gonna like take more energy to heat since it's outside?
That's a good question. I've not
I
seen this
feel
in
like
operation
it's
before.
Constantly, if it's outside in the cold. I would think that the outside temperature is going to play havoc on its system.
It has to be insulated to some capacity.
That's just my thought. I know if I have my garage door open, my water heater and my furnace keep kicking on.
It's a temporary portable 50 horsepower natural gas fired, remember we have natural gas in that building too, so we have to hook up a natural gas fired boiler at the subject location. And that would support the load, as the existing boiler is 60 horsepower. And again, it has to be able to be connected to natural gas too. So I know it's
I'm just
not.
trying to think of something that's not gonna cost $140,000 to fix.
Yeah, we didn't think it would be anywhere near this high, and Chris thought it would, that's why it really wasn't initially something we were concerned about. We thought it'd be maybe 15,000, 10,000. But I think, the labor itself for it is 22,000.
I'm just looking at the hours, how big a team is that? It's gonna take a few weeks to get it done if it's not a big.
164.
Yeah, that's for the install of the new boiler too, 264 hours. Hooking up the rental component, is 192 man hours.
I guess my next question's for Mariana. Do we have money for this? What does our budget look like?
Well, here's the thought, you want to share the two?
Yeah, so our thought process was we have some money sitting, so the capital, $250,000. That we,
Oh, I had all that earmarked.
earmarked, but we might have to back up. No, we have not spent any of it yet.
No, we haven't, and didn't you say one of the items came in higher?
Yeah, so I think we have the,
High.
in that 250, we had the girls' locker room, which will get done. The locker room floors, the ceiling or whatever that was called of all the locker room floors. And then last is we're looking at the sound for the auditorium. That came in. The first initial bid was very high. And I think we need to do more work on that. But this now came up, so
And if in the end, because right now it's hard for me to tell you on September, you know.
So I know it's really
hard to
early in the
tell.
year.
So if for some reason we use that 75,000. That we have earmarked for the auditorium as we rework it, if at the end of the year we have money left over in our operating budget,
exactly.
then we just use that, because this I think is more critical.
I agree with you. I'm just
Yeah,
trying
so,
to figure out what our
sure.
budget, because I know we didn't budget $140,000 for a boiler. Correct.
And it's reached as, I mean, obviously we have to do it
You
because.
can't turn it back on.
Right.
There's no heat right now.
There's no heat right
There's
now.
no repair, I mean, really.
What's the lifespan of it?
It was 1998 is when it was installed, so.
27 years old.
Yeah, we've exceeded these are the 20-year, roughly, we've exceeded the life.
This one would be probably also 25 to 30 years.
Should be, yeah, there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Just wish there was some way
No
to.
age on it, yeah.
What do you think, Jamie?
I'm just wishing there was some way for us to be more friendly to the world. Than getting a giant boiler installed. It's all ancient building. I just,
No, I get what she's saying, it's.
Eco-friendly.
I know.
not even
Generators,
something friendly, like,
Yeah, it's not, it's like a nothing item that's gonna sit there and, look pretty, nobody looks at. I get it.
Are you talking about the ecosystem, like?
just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, fire.
All I know is one way or the other,
I can't even
we
form
need,
a sentence.
we need to
I just.
put in, the boiler.
So what do you need from us?
Yeah, what's the
Motion,
motion?
or-
Well,
You have a
I think,
motion for this plus a not to.
I think you
exceed
do a
on-
not to exceed on the,
Totals, can I ask Jeff?
So the 73,440 is the new one.
Yeah.
and the, 68,580.
580.
Is the temporary fix. So we did a not to exceed because we anticipate, if we can get this here earlier, it's gonna be lesser of a cost. That's for a.
That's the like lowest possible, like rental one too.
That's for a 3-month period. For a 3-month period. You're talking, we're now, once we pull the trigger, it'll be in the middle of October, so November, December, it's covering us into January. I would hope we would have this.
Can you just do me a favor and ask about that question, please, about the insulating it? and how it
Yeah,
affects the
definitely.
temperature?
Yeah, Chris will be at our next meeting too, but in our.
This is in my
update,
brain,
we
I'm
can-
sticking it outside in the elements. The January weather is gonna make it just keep working. That's how my brain's working.
Yeah.
Isn't well these days, but
I just was, there were other quotes, or is this the only source that we have for this?
I'll have to go back and check with Chris.
Because-
He always does his homework though on trying to find the best price. Mariana, you don't recall if he said anything else about other
I
quotes.
don't. I mean,
Unfortunately, again, he couldn't be here tonight.
I think he and I had a conversation. I mean, he was thinking 25,000.
Yeah.
Not to be
I think he was
skeptical
surprised
here,
as
but
well.
we got the company renting us. The same company doing the install.
100%. I really would like.
Geez, that didn't show up yet. I don't really like that. Doesn't sound so good.
No, I fully agree on that
I
point.
was thinking the opposite, just in the fact that it would make it easier because of the install, because you would have 2 separate companies, one coming in and, I don't know.
But I mean, I would almost want to write something in there that there'd be a bonus to get it done early.
Yes.
so that, That seems like a bonus to-
they're waiting for the new one?
I don't know. I would assume, because it's not being used, they could
I'm just
remove
thinking
it.
when I got my boiler replaced, I called Random Plumbing and I ordered parts.
Yeah,
and-
I don't. I'm sure the fittings and valves are in here too, so they'd have to hook up the line coming in from the outside and probably circumvent current boiler and connect to,
Specialty.
yeah. It seems fine.
See another quote. It's to see, like, is there another quote? Like,
I can talk to Chris.
yeah, is there something else out there?
Yeah, yep, I can talk to Chris. Do you want to
In the
still, do you
meantime,
want to do it
I-
not to
I-
exceed, and then I can get some further information, because then you've got a ceiling.
Can I just get a clarity? Are we looking for a second quote on the new item,
Both.
on both?
Just,
Okay, I just wanted,
because
yeah.
it seems a little
The-
high.
Can I just interrupt? The
Yes,
first one is a bid. So he did bid.
First one is a bid?
Yeah, the 73
is a bid.
Bid, we went out to bid.
Perfect.
and so
Okay.
That is a bid.
Thank you.
Okay.
We got a number of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the
So
number,
when
but
the
put it out
Right,
publicly
right.
and it was bid.
So he
So
did
what
do a
Jeff
bid.
needs
The first one.
today,
Thank you.
what's really important is that we ordered the new one because it takes 12 to 16 weeks. And every day that we don't wait, we're getting deeper into the winter, that we're gonna have a temporary. So I guess question is, are people comfortable with the new one? And then we can get further information on the temporary solution.
We can get further information, but the only problem is you're gonna push us off to the 21st, because that's our next meeting. I don't know what the weather's gonna be between now and the 21st. If we get some cold days, we have no heat. I just don't want a labor complaint or grievance by, one of our,
When are they bringing the temporary heating source?
well, would have to call tomorrow, Joe, because that'd be approved first before we reach out to them.
Let's call tomorrow. If they order it, I'm sure at the last moment we can back out if they order it. I mean, I write that as part of the contract. I'm concerned about us walking around without anything. And I don't think I trust Chris, not that we're saying we don't trust Chris, but I'm assuming he knows the product or took the time to research the product and figure it and see what is the best bid. I guess I don't wanna leave the staff literally in the cold.
So I just, it wasn't bid, he used the state contract, so it's a public, it's bid, so he used one of the bidders on the state contract, which is what they do, which we typically do on our, they do the.
For the new one.
For the new one, so that one has been publicly bid and he chose one of those vendors.
Do you know what the criteria was for making the decision to go with this vendor?
For this first one or the second one?
The 73.
The 73, I can't speak for Chris, but again, if you're using, typically the way the state bid works is they give you the vendors that submitted for the lowest bid, so it could be, sometimes there's a couple of vendors there because it could be the service area. Depending on the area, it could be the type of boiler, so vendor A, so they'll put out a bid for various different boilers, and then it could be that this vendor is the only one that could provide that type of boiler.
Some source, yeah.
Correct, so it all depends, but it was, again, he used the state contract, which is public.
Can we modify the motion to say something to the effect that we would make a motion to approve the purchase of central office heating source or system not to exceed 7344?
Well, I think so. Jamie, I think wrote a motion that might work, so we can try.
We've already modified it.
Friendly amend anything we
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah,
I
that's what
wrote
we need to do, yeah.
motion to approve the proposed steam boiler, right?
Yes.
And possible rental boiler for central office to not exceed 145,000
It's the 68 and the 73 with a little,
with a little wiggle.
Cover, yeah.
I'll second that.
well, we didn't make them,
Well,
I didn't make it, that's just a reading, is that, are we comfortable with the
If you're
motion?
okay with that motion, or I can,
Before we state it, maybe one thing for,
is that
Yeah.
okay?
one thing for Jeff, maybe we can ask, can you probe with Chris?
Oh, yeah.
On this 68 one?
Definitely.
And just say, are there other options? Could we go with someone else?
Yep.
Like.
How it work in the
and
winter.
try- Yeah, how it work in the,
Yeah.
so maybe just that. For you to,
Diligence.
you do that work. Without
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Coming back to, you can let us know and next meeting on what the answer was, but I think time is of the essence.
Yeah, and my apologies for kind of springing this. I typically, that's not be our intention, but just, we had just gotten this.
The boiler couldn't go in April? No.
June, would have been nice if we knew, but,
Right,
So
so then
people are
I,
good with that motion?
I will make a motion to approve the proposed steam boiler and possible rental boiler for central office to not exceed 145,000.
Further discussion? Yep.
So if, for example, there's one that could be delivered in a week and it's 90,000. Is that something we would be able to go with?
well, that, I don't think.
Still less.
Yeah, but this is a two per motion.
Yeah. The state.
Yeah,
Process, we wouldn't want, we'd want to go with the cheapest, the best.
Even if the lead order?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
think.
I know what you're thinking, yeah, because to save on the other aspect of things,
On one side.
to go back to the list with Chris.
Oh,
Let's see.
It seems like if you can talk with Chris
Yeah.
and kind of sort out, we're all
Yeah, we'll try to
price
find the
is
best
high,
price,
we're
just
trying to
not
figure it
exceed.
out. Yeah, so
Yep.
if
What are
there
our
was,
different
what are the options and kind of come up with a good solution.
Yeah.
The option would be to table it and
Well, we can't table
Yeah,
because we
because
got.
it doesn't have heat.
Is this gonna drag out longer because our next meeting is until the
no,
21st?
no, but we've done emergency things by way of email. And we've done Zoom,
Email and.
You have to have a special board meeting.
right? Just saying, I mean, if we feel like we don't have. I mean, Chris isn't here, so we can't speak to him, we don't have all the information. So it just puts everyone in an awkward position.
Well, we'll get you the information for sure. And obviously, we're gonna try and come in as low as possible with that.
course.
If there are other options, then, I'll talk with Chris tomorrow. He's back in the office tomorrow. And we'll have a full, I'm meeting with him at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So we agenda item number 1.
So we do have a motion on the table that was seconded. Further
Well,
comment of all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained.
I'm abstaining.
All right.
Jeff, if you can get back to us
Yep,
on.
we'll get the information and
whether
get
or not
back to
Friday or the,
maybe after you hear.
yes. Okay. Moving on, discussion action item policy, first review policy 6,000 series, Lisa.
We read those out. So this is a first review of policies in the 6,000 series. There are 4 of them. The 6110, parental access to instructional materials, 6141.51, enrollment in advanced course program and challenging curriculum, 61416, 11, weighted graded and calculation of grade point averages, 6172.6, for courses taken online, remote or off campus. And then please read those, and if you have comments or suggestions, please send them to Jeff.
Just a thought, as we talked about last time with consent and moving the minutes under consent. I've seen some other districts, they put their policies under consent as well, so people can view them. And then it can always pull one out if there's a question. So it's just something to think about. Might expedite too. Oh,
Did that with Learn.
we revamp the that policy, that's something we
It
could.
makes it a lot smoother.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking, I saw that, I was like, wow, that's actually a good idea.
Good idea.
Or you can put in the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay. That closes discussion action items for the evening. Administration reports, Jeff.
Just 2 quick ones. I know it's time we still have a quick executive session. The December budget workshop, we've got our one in November, which is on the 16th, which is on the 18th, I'm sorry. Then in December, it was slated for the 19th. That's a Thursday. Wondering if people would be amenable to, we're running into some glitches with that date. If we could move the December budget workshop to Monday, December 16th. If folks would be okay with that, I can have Carissa, poll the board too, but I just wanted to pose that. It would help out in,
I think most of us plan on all our meetings on Monday.
well, that's what I thought too.
That's
I
fine. I
thought we came up with a Thursday originally.
I think we always do them on a.
November one is on the eighth.
November is actually on a Monday.
Yeah, that is
That's a Monday, the
Okay, that's
18th. We're
fine.
we'll have, what we did last year, we'll have a short, regular meeting.
Yeah.
And then we go right into a committee, the whole budget workshop. We did that in here
And
last
what
year.
was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be.
Supposed to be Thursday, the 19th of December. We could move it to Monday, the 16th. People are used to Monday.
I'm here from college on the 19th, so that would work.
Yeah, okay.
16th is
I have
good.
a conflict on the 19th.
Oh.
The 16th or the 19th.
I will be West Coast on the 16th. I will be back in time 19th, but
You can always zoom in then.
I'll zoom into it, but
No, I don't know. I don't think you can.
Yeah, we can.
Are we zooming?
if that's an option, yeah, I just,
No,
I
no.
unfortunately am.
You're on a different time zone.
Zoom in.
Time zones are-
What's the November date again?
Monday, the 18th, November
And
18th.
we have a board meeting already.
Scheduled that day.
Scheduled and in your.
Yeah, so quick board meeting and then we go into the committee, the whole budget workshop, but it sounds like that would work. It worked better for us too, because we're having a conflict with that too. So okay to move that budget workshop to the 16th?
Yeah.
All right, I'll have Carissa, we'll send that out tomorrow. So great, thank you. And then I just want to make mention too, and Elisa, we'll take a look at the new policy updates. Sheet has come out, so we've got a handful of, a lot of them are focused around non-discrimination, Title IX, we've got changes we gotta make. So we will be having some policy meetings coming up.
I think we have one.
Yeah, we have one scheduled. Yep, so that will be a look at the new policies. And new models, so, and that's it. For me.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Annalise, you done?
Yeah.
You're good. Yes. Thanks, Annalise.
Yeah.
Ariana?
I had training with our secretaries today on new input, budget processing and inputting for our detail. And hope we'll get the budget guidelines and information out tomorrow. It's due back November 13th, I think, that Wednesday, so I got some information and numbers, very draft numbers on the first budget. Unless anyone has any questions.
Moving to committee reports, we had FFO before this.
I think we've covered everything.
Okay. I think we did, and then Gabe.
Gabe, so I have to say that I got to go to the Northeast School Board meeting with Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and New York last weekend in Providence. It was very interesting. It was a great networking opportunity. All the boards of eds are kind of like talking about the same things we're talking about. Cell phones, AI, legislative updates. It's interesting to hear how they're doing things different and their different challenges they're getting. And it was a nice way to collaborate and talk about different ways to problem solve all the different issues that we're all facing and to see how different boards of eds work and how different states work. It was very, very interesting and enlightening. I learned a whole lot. But I can talk about that another day. But with CAPE updates, we have the webinar. There's an Ed site one. It was reminding me of you. There's a question and answer on October 31st, 12 to 1. If you have Ed site questions, there's going to be a webinar for that.
Yeah. Wait, can you tell me the date one more time?
10/31 from 12 to 1. It's going to be questions to guide your Ed site exploration before the session. And there's like a little HTTP thing. I can always forward it to you if you want.
I'm sure I could find it in my email.
There's a legislative in-person workshop on October 16th. We all know CAPE convention's coming up. December 3rd is new board member orientation for Olivia and Vivek. I know you guys didn't go last year. It's December 3rd. And I want to,
Sorry,
huh?
you have a time.
It's all day. So, and the speakers have come out for CAPE on Friday. It's Dr. Timothy Schreiber. And he's going to be speaking about healing the breach, strategies and skills for bridging divides. And on Saturday, it's going to be Beth Morning Dear Reagan. She is the Mohegan Tribe Council of Elders, and she's going to be talking on the value in the developing relationships with others. So it's going to be really good. There's tons of stuff coming up. Lots to do. And I can send you guys a link if you want the link for the Ed Site one.
Would
You did
that
get
be
it.
in the
It's probably wasn't a CABE email, but I can just send you the email they sent me on my updates, so I can send it to you if you want.
I can also try.
I guess I did you.
He never sent it. Yeah. I'm looking for it. Thank you.
And then learn, we have our board meeting on Thursday, so we haven't had one since my update meeting. And that moves to board comments.
I'm wondering how we're doing with our food scrap program. It's 25 days left, I think, and I'm wondering what's gonna happen if we don't get the $7,000 that we need. And how it's going to be sustained. During the project.
Yeah, well, we won't get the grant. I think it ends at the end of the month, but still a push. Just got an email from Narcissus. We'll circle back and put some of the weekly update Friday as a, you know, kind of a new update to see where the money is. I can do that.
There's one minor one, and sorry, Jamie, but Chris brought in that salsa, not the rhubarb, but he got. I ate the entire thing last night, the night we had, whatever that Monday, whatever that was, it was very, very, very good. So. Please pass that
My
along.
birthday. Not fair.
Okay, we do have an exec. Oh,
Are we doing agenda topics too?
yeah.
We get an update on the elementary numbers across the schools and the teacher support that we've had since the start.
I can,
And
yep, I responded to an email today and copied you all, so you see there's a pair in both classrooms, full time, at Flanders. I can easily send you a sheet with the numbers, so you can see exactly where I put it right in the Friday update. So you can look at the chart that we have that shows each of the elementary schools.
And you can also see that we're gonna be out of guidelines in either direction. Because if there's 39 students, if you have 3, you're at 13, which is below. If you have 2, you're at 19, 20. So there's times where we're just stuck.
Yep, so I guess then my other question is around, when we talk about monitoring that, what does that look like?
We get, I can look at the report, I mean, look at now, it always gets updated. Stacey Muscarella downstairs, updates it regularly because she takes care of any, enrollments. We watch it, she will flag and mention to me if there's, one that is registered. She comes right up and lets me know. So hopefully we don't see any more. We'd love to see, you know, maybe one drop or a student, I don't want to see a student move or leave, but, hopefully it holds, you know, where it
Can you
is.
remind me what we started the year with?
19 and 20, and I believe it's a 20 and 20 right now. It's Danielle, 20 and 20, 20 and 20 at that K, that K level. Remember, you know, in years past, Brian, you had 21 or 22, Danielle, a couple years ago, you had 21 K, you know, and we really focus on that para support.
Paraprofessional and
There's Each classroom has a dedicated paraprofessional. Now, we struggled a little bit in the beginning of the year, but Danielle was piecemealing and you had coverage that was going on in the classrooms, but now we have two dedicated. We hired the last one was the last week or the week before. The second classroom got their final permanent person that's in there all day with them.
The other two things that came up too were, what happened at the middle school and the assembly.
I'll address that with the parent. It was just a little blown out of proportion and I will let you know as to what, you know, what transpired. I mean, I didn't share that with you because it really was, you know, something that wasn't big of a deal that it was seen to be made sort of thing. But
And then the other thing was the tennis courts. I'm just wondering, should we talk about that at some point? Have that as an agenda item or the letter that we got that was sent to the board?
I took care of it, with a letter back to that individual. I haven't heard anything since.
So that's all.
Yep, we continue to open them after school, weekends.
Okay.
You know, I think the problem was the bubble. It would, you know, of course, where two of them were closed. They might have closed an extra one by accident, so they couldn't have access. But one other time where a security staff member wasn't available, I think it was last week or the week before, forgot to open them, so we did. Those things are gonna happen. You know, Chris Olson, they're making sure they're open them. And Kevin Marcuse, as well, he's got a key.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay, we do have an executive session item. The executive session to discuss administrative personnel matter. I want to make a motion to move us into.
Sorry, myself and Annalise.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to include Annalise Spaziano and Jeff.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained.